Greetings from the Alexandrina Council. Let's meet the driving force behind the Alexandrina community. Mayor Keith Parks, Deputy Mayor Councillor Margaret Gardner, CEO Nigel Morris, West Ward, Councillor Bill Coomans, Councillor Lou Nicholson, Councillor Michael Scott, North Ward, Councillor Craig Maidment, Councillor Sue Miller, Councillor Christy Thornton, South Ward, Councillor Margaret Gardner, Councillor Millie Livingston, and finally, Councillor Peter Oliver.
Good afternoon. Welcome to our council meeting of Monday the 18th of March 2024. An audio recording of this meeting will be made for minute-taking purposes, and it will last the length of the open meeting. And the audio file will be available on the council website after the draft minutes have been circulated. I'd like to welcome our elected members. We have no apologies or leave of absence. Also like to welcome our Chief Executive, Nigel Morris, our General Manager Community, Stacey Bettison, our General Manager Infrastructure, Alan Harvey, General Manager Corporate, Trish Kirkland, and some of our other staff that are here to assist us. The Alexandrina Council and its communities acknowledge the Narrandjeri people, Paramount and Kaurna people as the traditional custodians in the lands and waters of our council district. Would you all please stand for the local government prayer? Almighty God, we humbly beseech Thee to grant Thy blessing upon the works of this council. Guide us in our deliberations for the advancement and the true welfare of the people of the district. Thank you. Just remind council members, if you have an interest in a matter which is before council at this meeting, you're asked to disclose the interest to the council and provide full and accurate details of the relevant interest at the beginning of the meeting. Members are also reminded they must also declare their interest and provide details at the time the relevant item arises for consideration. We have a declared interest from reading when I'm ready. We have a declared interest from Councillor Sue Miller, providing advice that she has a material conflict of interest at 2.1, adjourned debate involving the Strathalbyn Neighbourhood Centre, including the loan. Part 2, due to employment, and to advise she will leave the chamber when this item is considered. And you've got some others to advise.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I do. 8.3, West Creek Road's closing process. I have a material conflict of interest due to a related party undertaking contracting work for West Creek Partners, and I will leave the chamber. 8.8, Community Transport Services, informing budget considerations. I have a general conflict. I don't believe this to be a material as it's only informing, and I won't participate in the debate, but I will vote as the recommendation currently reads. However, if the debate enters any contract or dollar values, then Your Worship, I will leave as that heads into material conflict of interest due to my employment. 8.10, Adelaide Hills Regional Waste Management Authority Budget Review 2. Similar to the above, a general conflict due to my employment, but I will remain in the chamber. I won't participate in the debate, and I will vote on the recommendation as it currently reads. And 8.11, Adelaide Hills Regional Waste Management Authority response to merger. The topic for discussion may have a material impact on my employer. I will leave the chamber. Thank you.
Anybody? Councillor Scott.
Yes, I just want to declare that I'm a member of the board of the Adelaide Hills Regional Waste Authority, and I think there is no reason for me to leave the chamber, and I can just vote at the end. Thank you.
Any others? No? So we'll move on to the confirmation of the minutes of our meeting held on the 19th of February 2024, that they were received as true and correct record. Is there a mover for that? To Nicholson. Second, Councillor Oliver. Any discussion relating to those minutes? No, so I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Item 2 is adjourned debate. 2.1 is adjourned debate. It's a notice of motion from Councillor Maidment regarding the Strathalbyn Neighbourhood Centre.
I declare my conflict of interest. Thank you, Rishan.
So we take, pardon me, we take up the adjourned debate. The item was moved by Councillor Maidment, seconded by Councillor Scott. Councillor Maidment, Councillor Coomans and Councillor Scott have spoken, and so I'll open now to the rest of you for any further discussion. Councillor Gardner? Yeah.
Thank you, Worship. I will not be voting for this motion, and so I won't approve the loan for the Strath Neighbourhood Centre for $45,000. I would support the first part of, or not the second part of the, that council continues to provide annual funding, approximately $17,000 for the Hills Community Transport Services. And the reason that I will vote against it is that the Hills and Community Transport Service already provides a valuable service. It's unlikely that one vehicle would be able to pick up all the clients that this service is already picking up. I understand that the HCT is near to finalising a contract with the state government for additional funding, and that's aimed to bolstering the service in outlying rural areas. And one second-hand bus, and that I think is the operative word, second-hand. We don't know how it's going to be serviced. We don't know too much about exactly what the service is going to provide. And while I think it's quite a good idea, I don't think they've done enough work to ensure that this bus is going to run in a way that is suitable enough. So I definitely will be voting against it.
Any further discussion on it? No. Councillor Maidment, you should have your right of reply.
So the original motion was asking for a report to come back on the Hills Transport Service, and did we in fact need it. That was brought about by many people in our community saying that it was an onerous task to get onto that system. You had to have an aged care package, you had to have an NDIS package, and you get subsidised, and you had to ring 3 days in advance. There was no on-demand or flexibility in all of that. So this notion that the neighbourhood centre would take on a bus for the community would not cross over the fact that the Hills Transport Network would still be providing their services to their clients, because as the officers have given us their report, it's much needed for medical and primarily for medical purposes. They can keep that going. I'm pleased to see that it is used quite a bit. I didn't really understand how it was used, and they do provide a service with people that have got government funding. So, but for the 90% of the people that probably haven't got government funding, they still have no access to transport in and around our community and our outlying regions. And that's one of the things that came out loud and clear in the village conversations was transport is an issue with connectivity from Milang to Strath to Mount Barker, Clayton to Milang and Ashbourne as well. So they're the ones that are asking for a loan. It's going to be paid back. Whether they, if it all fell over in the first instance, I'd be very disappointed, but they would still be liable for the amount to return to council of the 45,000. So it's a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned.
That ends the discussion, so I will put the motion to you. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. Can we get Councillor Miller back? Thanks, Alan. So item 3 is presentations and deputations. 3.1 is a deputation relating to the New Year's Eve fireworks display in Goolwa, and we have Karen Ross here to talk to us about that. Welcome, Karen. Do you need more than 5 minutes? No, all right.
Thank you, Mayor Parkes and councillors, for having me along to this meeting. My name is Karen Ross and I'm one half of the committee that organises fireworks off the bridge each New Year's Eve. My intended outcome this afternoon is to raise awareness about how this event is organised and to clarify any misunderstandings. I plan to talk for just a couple of minutes and then answer any questions that you may have. The other half of the committee is Liz Livingston, who was unable to attend this afternoon. Our small committee is not incorporated, and as such, we need each year to come under the umbrella of an auspicing body in order to run a bank account and to obtain insurance for the event. This year, we are hoping that Chitterslow will auspice us. Last year, it was the Goolwa Aquatic Club. The fireworks in its current format has been running since 2015, and the display is funded by sponsorship and donations from community businesses, organisations and individuals. Each year we raise about $15,000 for the fireworks display and also for its promotion. Some of you may be aware that Liz and I were approached this time last year by Danae Cates from Council, who suggested that Council administration take over organisation of the event. This bid was not supported in Chamber. However, Council did endorse an amount of $5,000 for traffic management and other logistics, and also endorsed our application for a community events grant of $2,500. Our committee is happy to continue raising funds to cover the cost of the fireworks display and also for promotional materials for the event. In order that this successful annual event continues on future New Year's Eves, we respectfully request that Chamber considers the following 3 things. First of all, that Council continues to commit to covering costs for traffic management and logistics. In 2023, this was around $5,000. Secondly, that Council continues to endorse a grant for our community event. In 2023, this was $2,500. Thirdly, that Council continues to arrange the required notification by letter to Hindmarsh Island residents. In addition, we request that a Council administrator arranges traffic management with a preferred supplier. Last year, I arranged it with a company called WorkZone, who, unbeknownst to me, was not a preferred supplier. As a consequence, we paid their invoice and had to wait for reimbursement from Council. This proved cumbersome for our cash flow arrangements as we were unable to settle other outstanding invoices, and it delayed the acquittal required for our Smarty grants. That's all I wanted to talk about. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thanks, Karen. Anybody got any questions? Oh, you did too good a job. Well done. Thanks very much. Keep on doing the good work. Well done. 3.2 is a deputation from Miss Alice McCleary, who's the Independent Chair of Alexandrina Council's Audit and Risk Committee. So welcome, Alice. And do you need more than 5 minutes?
No.
Oh.
Thank you for the opportunity to present to you. I assume you all have a full copy of the financial statements for the year ended 30th of June 2023 with accompanying notes and things. Obviously these accounts are very late. Normally we would aim to have these presented to Council in October or November, and that would be the end of it. This year, as I'm sure you're all aware, the accounts are very late due to a major project that was pressed on us by our auditors to revalue or start revaluing our fixed assets. And this was a very, very major project, and it's really only come to its final fruition in the last 2 weeks, just immediately prior to finalising these accounts. The assets that Council agreed to fund the revaluation of, and that was thank you very much for that approval of that additional funding. If we hadn't of that, I think you'll recall that our auditor said they would be giving us a qualified audit report this year. So that hasn't happened. We've had a clean audit report. But the work that we worked on were sealed and unsealed roads, curbing and guttering. And the work that was undertaken is best in class. And in fact, we know that people from even city councils are looking at the work we've done, apparently reading our audit and risk committee minutes and papers to see what we've done with the project, because they are looking to do something similar, and ours are regarded as a benchmark. It's been suggested that our staff who were involved in this should be speaking at local government conferences and things like that to explain exactly how we went about it, so that this best-in-class approach to asset valuation be adopted much more widely, because we won't be the only council that is severely undervaluing its fixed assets. For the assets we have valued, the difference between what they're in the books at last year and what they're in the books at this year is about $156 million. That's a big change, and we haven't finished the assets by any means. So the assets that are going to be looked at in the coming year are open spaces, the community waste management, and stormwater, that's right. So there'll be another big increase in our asset values next year as a result of that. Though that work has led to a revaluation of the roads, curbs and guttering as of 30th of June 2023. So that means our balance sheet is much bigger by $156 million, but it means that our profit and loss account, which deals with the depreciation charge, is on the old value, because the valuation only changed on the very last day of the year. So we've got 364 days worth, or 5 days worth, of depreciation of the old value. So when you look at the accounts, there is no difference in the profit and loss account in the general part of the P&L. And if you have a look on page 575 of your pack, you'll see that the result of the net surplus for council, which is about 2/3 of the way down the column, is $6.3 million surplus compared to 4.6 for last year. So broadly in the ballpark of last year's. Then you'll see that we have an extraordinary profit of $156 million added, which is the revaluation of our assets, which has to come through our profit and loss account. So the total comprehensive income for this year is shown as $169 million. That is not $169 million that you can spend. It's paper profits. But what it does mean is that next year, the whole of the year, the assets will be $156 million higher than they were last year. So the depreciation charge will be on a much higher base. This will add over $4 million of depreciation charges to next year's profit and loss account. So that needs to be planned for, because otherwise you'll be going into deficit. if nothing is done to mitigate and deal with the fact that we've got another $4 million worth of depreciation to cover. And the year after that, we'll have more again because we'll have the open spaces and the stormwater and the community waste management also revalued. The revaluation is so much higher from two conflicting things that have happened. And again, this won't be unique to you, Alexandrina. We value our things on a replacement cost. So the cost of building roads and things is increased. We all know cement and gravel and everything has gone up very, very markedly since these assets would have been valued some years ago. So the cost has gone up, but they're not lasting as long. So the effective life is coming shorter. So that cost has to be divided into fewer years. So each year's charge is higher on a bigger amount. So that is why there's such a big chunk of change in both the asset value and the depreciation. So this is a major thing that council has to face. Some people say, well, why did you bother to do it? Well, if you don't do that, then you're not putting enough aside to actually replace your assets. You can't fix the road when it needs fixing in future years because you haven't got the funds available. You haven't been putting anything aside to do that, or not sufficient aside, so you can't fix the bridge. You can't fix the flood issues because there's not enough there. So we do need to face this higher charge, and we do need to make sure that we are taking into account all of our considerations about our budgeting, because otherwise there simply will not be enough money in the future to maintain, let alone improve our asset base. That's the main issue arising from the financial statements. That was a very big piece of work, and I want to commend council staff and our consultants who assisted us with that. And as I say, it is a best-in-class project that was done. So we should be very proud of the people who did it and the courage of council in providing the funding for that project. I don't really have anything else to say other than to recommend the financial statements be accepted by council, along with the required tweaking to all of our long-term financial planning that arises from these accounts.
Thanks very much, Alice. Do we have anybody have any questions of Alice? Councillor Scott.
Thank you for that. And it was interesting that you said that we won't be the only council that will perhaps find ourselves in this situation. Is that two parts to this question? Is that because they are not up to speed with their routine of doing it, or is it fairly common that councils are slow in revaluing assets? That is one part of the question. The second part, you comment... Oh, sorry.
Well, that's in my head. I'll answer that one. I don't have the broad enough knowledge of the entire councils of Australia to know how bad it is. But I think most councils, in fact most organisations, would be looking at their assets and saying, oh, well, inflation's gone up by 5%, we'll just add, increase it by 5%. That doesn't take into account of the fact that our assets have gone up, the costs of our assets have gone up by way more than inflation. Now, there may be other sorts of assets that have not gone up to that degree, and just simply indexing them each year might help. But that hasn't worked for us, and we haven't done this full root and branch valuation for a very long time. But we will not be the only ones who do it, who have not gone through this. It's a big exercise. It's an expensive exercise, and it has a huge impact. Having done this, we hope that we want to keep tweaking it more often, reviewing it more often in a thorough way, not just adding on the inflation amount each year, because that has proved not to be adequate. So, second.
And the other thing, you did mention that the assets now are costing more to create and to make, and are not lasting as long. Is that due to the product that we're getting, i.e. bitumen or that sort of thing, are not as good a quality as they used to be?
I couldn't answer the reason, but some of our road bases are in at 400, 500, 600 year lives for our road bases. Now, the Roman roads have been around 2,000 years, and they are generally in pretty good nick, I think, in where they're used. But we have, in the last year, I think, gone down to the road base twice to make repairs into the road base. Now, how long's Alexandrina Council been around? 100 years? When did we?
Alexandrina, 20-something years since amalgamation.
And then before that, there would have been local.
Yeah.
So some of those road bases, let's say, might be 120 years old. But if we are already starting to go in and repair the road base, it's not going to last 600 years. And that's what they have been in council books at 400, 500, 600 years. So the estimates of the life originally were probably too long. But also things change. The road that you might have built, maybe it will last 300 years or 200 years, but you don't need it there anymore. So you need it, you've got a new suburb going, so that has to be pulled up and built a new one. I mean, it's changes in the way the community lives as well as the materials and things.
Thank you. Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you so much. This has all been a lot of information for us to digest over the last couple of weeks. I suppose we've seen a lot of things change over recent years, unprecedented sort of events that have had changes that weren't easy to anticipate. So I wonder, from your perspective, has this been another one of those sort of fallout from the last few years that was very difficult to anticipate, or were there signs or I suppose reasons that we should have been considering this earlier, or was it pretty hard to anticipate?
I don't think it was to do with COVID, if that's what you're suggesting. I don't think there would be, I can't see any reason why COVID would be affecting it. I think it comes out of people want to, you know, in an organisation like a council, you're trying to do as well as you can with the money that you've got. And if you can put off something like revaluing your roads for another year, and just add 5%, because that should cover it, then that's a lot cheaper to do that than to actually do the sort of work we've done in the last year. And I think probably that those are the sort of trade-offs that have been made, and you know, you can't go down a different road once you've already chosen to go down the one on the right-hand side. But we're certainly hoping that having done this now, we will be keeping it up to date more easily and quickly. But it also needs to be more thorough. It can't just be take the amount from last year and add 5%. That's just not going to cut it. And that's going to cost more as well. So, I mean, it all comes back to money, unfortunately.
Any further questions? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you very much, Alice, for coming tonight. I think that's really important that we hear that from an independent person. And I noticed that the agenda items coming from the Audit and Risk Committee recommendations are very late in the agenda, and I know, Mayor Parks, you have a precedent of bringing forward items when there's a deputation. I just wondered if that's...
No, we're asking questions of Alice. No, we're not bringing anything forward.
Okay, but thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Thanks, Alice. I think one thing with the roads, the traffic, everybody knows traffic volumes have increased massively in the last 10 years. And that's definitely got an impact on the roads and everything else that we do. Yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously heavy transport in particular has a very big impact on road longevity.
So thanks, Alice, and thanks for doing a marvellous job as chairing our Audit and Risk Committee. Thank you very much for what you do. 3.3 is the development of a new skate park in Middleton. Got Evan Bailey from Middleton, who's going to give us an excellent presentation all about that. Thanks, Evan.
Thank you very much, Mayor Park. Thank you, Council, for taking the time to listen to my idea. It's very much appreciated. So my idea is to for as you can see there on the screen, for a beginner-friendly skate, scoot and roller play space in Middleton. That I circulated a petition over the last month in Middleton, and I have it here with me. That's collected over 350 signatures from the community showing their support. My idea stems from that there is some fantastic facilities in the Alexandrina Council area that have skating for that community, but there's very little in terms of any area that fosters beginner play space. I'm a little bit nervous. Beginner play spaces that you can take your kids to, essentially, that you're not going to get run over by a BMX, a professional rider, an advanced rider, so to speak. So I might, if we go to the next, is that the clicker? Oh, there's the clicker here. Can I might need you to do it. Is that okay? Thank you. Perfect. So this might be easier for me to speak to. So my key points are there's little to no play space in Middleton for skating and roller skating. The one that is there is nicknamed the cheese grater. For good reason. It will take skin off quicker than a blink of an eye if your kid falls on it. And I think that's just down to being weathered over the years, and it's a bit dilapidated. So replace the poor and hazardous facilities that exist. There's an increasing population, a growing population of young families in the area, and I think my idea will really bolster the board riding, the surfing community that already exists in Middleton, and that has a fantastic reputation not only on the south coast but also in the state and wider Australia for what we can offer. And I think that my idea will really bolster and attest to that. So like I said before, most parks in the wider area accommodate to advanced and professional riders. So what I want to do is get the kids and the beginners off the bike track, get them off the roads where they're practicing, and give us an area that is safer and I think it will make the area a lot better. An idea that I think was fantastic that came from someone else in the community was that there's a potential for a universal design to accommodate children of all abilities and disabilities. I think we could produce something that has wheelchair access, which is unlike anything in this area and in the state that I've seen, that can be more inclusive. And like I mentioned before, support and foster the community and tourism of board riding culture, and basically strengthen Middleton's identity for producing this sort of culture in this state, which I think is really strong. Thanks, Tanya. So what am I asking for sitting in front of you today is that I've got it's a funding to engage Convic, who are widely recognised for their experience as leading skate park and landscape designers. So funding to engage Convic to design our park based on the community's ideas. So at the top there, I've got an excerpt from an email conversation that I've had with Convic. For us to undertake the concept design and community engagement phases, they would estimate approximately $10,000 to $15,000 for a $500,000 to $750,000 skate park, which is exceeding my ideas. And this would include 2 concept designs and 2 visits to Middleton to meet with the community to get everyone else's ideas there. I'm sitting before you today requesting your support in getting a design for Middleton to scope this project, to get it going, and I've written in bold there, initiating this process. So really get the wheels turning, pardon the pun, on getting basically something fantastic for Middleton and for the Alexandrina area. My ideas are that it's dynamic, functional, ergonomic, and a leading example of intelligent design in this area that flows with the space we've got. This is one example of a skate park that is similar in scale to what I'm thinking, that is around, this is from the Convic material, around the $200,000 to $500,000 spend. On the bottom right, you can see what was there initially and what Convic have turned it into. So something far more dynamic and engaging and fun, something that I think younger families and the community are more drawn to. This is a bit of a mood board. So with my ideas into how I think we can really lean on what makes Middleton and the coast so fantastic and include it into the design, and like I said, something that is intelligent and ergonomic and works with what's already there. And I think the last one there, Tanya, is the location that I think would be fantastic to make this happen. It is at the end of Mill Terrace. The bottom left picture might be a little bit difficult to see, but it's Mill Terrace in Middleton, that just before the road dips down to the toilet block or the car park at the end there. There's what I deem to be or can see as pretty unused space that has a potential to build something fantastic that it really showcases the best of Middleton, that we could make something there that draws the community together, you know, with some shelter or barbecue facilities that then you can watch the surfers. You can, you know, bring your kids there for the day, for birthday parties, all the rest, and yeah, I think would be brilliant. In front of you there is a letter of support from the Middleton Town and Foreshore Association that I've presented the idea to, which they're in full support of. Also, there is some frequently asked questions there that Convict Supply have provided, that often questions that come with these sort of projects.
Thanks, Evan. Any questions of Evan? Councillor Scott.
Thank you for that. That's great. The idea of including some disabled facilities makes it really attractive. And I just wondered, the quick question is it likely to cause make it too much more expensive, having whatever they do for disabled facilities, or not? Or does that really be part of the normal thing?
I couldn't answer that question definitively. That would be something that Convict would incorporate into their design. But I think that would be a fantastic addition and would align nicely with what my ideas around the scale and also the design of the park, in that it's easily accessible. As you can see, like, it's a beautiful piece of flat ground that provides enough space for all these ideas, parking, etc. And, you know, not in the lines of having these great big walls of concrete, but being more of a gentle and beginner-friendly space. I think it would be far easier to incorporate wheelchair accessibility in its design.
Any further questions? Councillor Miller and then Councillor...
Thank you, Worship. Evan, thank you. I was actually at the Middleton meeting where you presented that to the group. So it's great to see the letter from them. I do recall some questions being asked about the location. There were some concerns about the location, but I can't recall if that was the location where the current one is or this new one. And I just wondered what you see council's role is. Are you just seeking the funding and you'll manage all of the, the role is that council just provides that money? Is that what you're thinking?
Yes, so my request in engaging Convict as the company, and I think just on that point too, that I believe they're the best people to go with because of how fantastic they are at what they do. I think getting someone who is not as experienced runs the risk of designing a space that people don't want to use or is not done very well. And my confidence in that company is because of how well they incorporate their experience, how well they do it, and also the fact that they come here, consult with the community, and then look at the space and say, as professionals in this field, this is what we feel we can do. There was conversation at the town of Foreshore around, well, do we just add to the existing, or are you wanting to build something new? My initial preference is to build something new. I think that offers something so fantastic in that you have views of the coast and in that idea of board riding culture. But as a community, we're also open to ideas as to what they think that can be done with the existing site, if that, ideas around that. So that's how I see it. If we are so lucky to go down this path, that I believe they can bring that to the table too and say, well, look, here's your ideas around this. This is what we can do, but you know, and but as far as then consulting, yeah, but yeah, by all means, I'll be me.
Councillor Coomans, yeah.
Good on you, Evan. Is this something that you've sort of initiated on your own, or are you part of a group, or a group of parents, or a group of experts, or some knowledge in this area?
Certainly not experts, but yeah, a group of families, certainly, yeah, there are, like I mentioned, a number of growing families in the area with young children that would like to see more provided for kids and big kids alike. But I am initiating this on my own, but in a sense, on behalf of the added interest, and as you can see, the really big interest of the community there. But yeah, I'm certainly willing to do all the legwork to get it going.
Any further questions? No. Evan, thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Well done again.
Yeah.
It was very good, Middleton, and good luck.
Thank you.
Convict have done some skate parks for us already. We know they do an excellent job. Well done. Thank you. Item 4 is petitions. There are none. Item 5 is questions with notice. There are 7 questions with notice. The questions and the answers are in the agenda. 6 is questions without notice. Are there any questions without notice? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Worship. My question relates to Rattling and the slashing of any fire breaks along the road around Pleasant Banks and along the railway corridor around the stables, the dairy and the poultry shed, and where we are at with the tender for the restoration of the poultry shed, and the Seeding Natives proposal. Is that for 2 hectares or 7 hectares? Thank you.
Through the Chair, I'll take all of those ones on notice.
Do we have any further questions without notice? No. So we move to item 7, which is notice of motions. 7.1 is a motion from Councillor Oliver regarding a RV park in Goolwa, scoping and consultation. Do you wish to move it and speak to it?
Thank you, Mayor. I think there's a great opportunity for Alexandrina to get on board with RV tourism. Many other councils have. In terms of, I think it's a pretty simple concept, and an RV park doesn't have to be very complex either. In terms of consultation, I'm not sure if I agree with Admin's comment. I think consultation is important at an early stage to determine the different locations the community may think it could work. And this is a classic example where everyone may want it, but they may not want it in their backyard, so it would need to be carefully considered. And there's been a few ideas raised from the community. Could the Goolwa Oval be used as an RV park? Could the Barrage Precinct be used? So I'm just pretty keen to see it get out on the table, and I'm not sure if it needs to wait until we do a revision of the master plan. But thank you for your consideration, and I hope you vote favourably.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Coomans, do you wish to speak?
Yeah, look, I'm happy to support this because it's something that I've had discussions with over a long period of time in terms of my own area. We sort of did a bit of research on the self-contained wrecked vehicles staying for a period of time, sort of 1, 2 or 3 nights. And my own area, we've got toilets available and a parking area. We've got shops, so it's probably something that would work very well. And signage in the towns also helps sort of advertise it, and also makes us RV friendly towns. So I'd like to see this sort of extended so we can look at other areas as well. And I think it's the way forward. We had some discussions with an RV, associations or groups who provide magazines and what have you. And they sometimes do provide some funding to assist with this. So it's something that we could also have a look at as well. So I think it's certainly worthy of investigation, so I'm happy to support it.
Any further discussion? Councillor Gardner.
Question. The cost of scoping study and public consultation, what would we be looking at?
Through the Chair, the motion at the moment is first asking us to do a scoping study and public consultation without identifying a site. So I presume that the initial one would be doing a online newspaper, My Say, Alexandrina, just to have a look and go out to the community and ask for their feedback, so that wouldn't be extensive costs. When that comes back and we present it to council, it's probably the next steps which will then take the time and costs. So I'm saying the initial stuff, maybe less than $1,000. That's just to get a location, but the in-depth study will cost a lot more.
Any further discussion? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Your Worship. I note the officer's comments here, and I think this motion has great merit, but not just in Goolwa. If the words "for Goolwa" were removed, I'd happily support this. You may or not be aware that in 2019 there was an expression of interest to establish an RV park in Strathalbyn at Lot 10. That remains a very live expression of interest that is awaiting council to make future decisions. It was referenced in the Strathalbyn Town Plan, which was created in 2014 and expires this year. Councillor Oliver's initiative would be informed by a sport and recreation and open space strategy and a facilities development plan, but we don't have that yet. I do think it's wise to include this in considerations for the Goolwa the Goolwa Growth Concept Plan. So whilst I won't support it right now if it's just specific to Goolwa, I'd be delighted to see a potential study done for demand for RV parks. That would be a great way to spend some of our economic development budget. RV parks, I have no doubt, would drive our visitor economy and directly support our businesses. So unfortunately, while it has "for Goolwa" in it, I can't support it. Thank you.
Is any further discussion? Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you. I too commend Councillor Oliver for bringing this motion. It's great to think about, and certainly I'm all for Alexandrina considering how friendly and appealing we are to RVs. They are a significant part of a visitor economy to consider. I do have a number of questions, I suppose, or reservations in supporting it as it is. I, at this stage, am more inclined to vote against this, but hope to see it come back, and if it goes that way, would be keen to talk about looking at it for a broader Alexandrina scoping, looking at where the gaps are within our whole region for RV parks and putting that together for us to consider across the whole region. I know we do have a caravan park in Goolwa, and I suppose my questions as well are, what gap is this filling? So keen to know more, keen to look at it in terms of the gaps across Alexandrina at this stage. Thank you.
Any further? Councillor Scott.
Just to say that I seem to remember well before Nigel came, we went through all this. I reckon it was my first term, with looking at down there, and also I think off Burns Road. I think there was looking at that area there as well. But it has been done, so there'd be some history there to follow up on if you wanted to. But I don't think we need to worry about only being Goolwa. We can go on to the rest later. It's a great. Just look at Frank Potts Park down there at Langhorne Creek. I mean, it's just so popular, and we could be the same.
Any further discussion?
I think it's great to look into too, but considering the comments that it can be intertwined in what we're already doing, I think I'd be in favour of doing that more so than solely this.
Any others? No, we did. Councillor Scott's right. We're in the middle of doing Strathalbyn anyway. Lot 10, we've done it to death so far, and we're still doing it. We did look at this, as Councillor Scott said. I didn't remember the Burns Road, but we did look at a site which is clearly identified in Narrandjeri history as the visitors' land. It's called the strangers' land. And we talked to Narrandjeri many years ago about it, and you know, the elders at the time weren't all that keen. But I think we've got new elders with a different vision, that we could spend very little money and just maybe an email and a meeting and see what they think before we go spending anything. But I think it's a perfect location for it. So you want to write a reply?
Yeah, I'm pretty keen for this, and I think the community is, and I think it's a great opportunity. I do take the points about making it Alexandrina wide. I would be happy to substitute the word Goolwa for Alexandrina.
Councillor Coombs, are you happy to just take the Goolwa bit out and leave it Alexandrina?
Yes, look, I think it makes sense, but when reading the report, it didn't. I know the recommendation says Goolwa only, but in the report it does speak a little bit wider, and maybe by including Alexandrina rather than Goolwa would be a good move. So I'm happy to support that.
Okay, so we'll take that out. So that ends the debate. We'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimous. No, it's not. It's against? It's carried. So 7.2 is a notice of motion from Councillor Oliver regarding opening of the Goolwa Barrage. You wish to move it and speak to it?
Yeah, I'd like to move it. I think we've had quite extensive conversation on this recently, so I'm just happy to put it to the vote. Thank you.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Livingston. Is there any discussion? Just so you know, just to clarify, help Councillor Oliver out with this. This has been looked at for many years. It will never happen until the Goolwa Barrage is automated, because it's too dangerous with the crane and going up and down the tracks, taking the logs in and out. So Twitchery and New Ireland are automated. They're doing experiments on automating the Goolwa Barrage for lots of reasons. In Project Coorong, which is $70 million from the federal government, the Goolwa Barrage is about item 5 on the list of priorities. So it's right up there in major projects. But there's a lot of work to go. And if you went to the 20 years of the Living Murray celebrations at the Aquatic Centre a few weeks ago, one of the considerations of the barrage is, apart from the water coming down the river and controlling it, it's overcoming sea level rise, topping the barrages in future years. So there's a lot of work to do there, and so it's a good thing. The idea was to link the Encounter Bikeway right through the barrages, and Coorong Council wanted it to come all the way from Salt Creek, across all the barrages and through. So it's something in the system. So you want to say any more?
I think there's a great opportunity. Thank you, Mayor, to keep up the pressure to keep this happening. Thank you.
So I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. 7.3 is a motion from Councillor Miller regarding a draft revenue strategy for 2025-28 and referral to the Audit and Risk Committee. Do you wish to move it and speak to it?
Thank you, Worship. I noticed the answer to my question with notice at the last council meeting about the draft revenue strategy. I didn't realise that it wasn't endorsed when we endorsed the budget last year, because it was actually an attachment, and all the other attachments were endorsed. So we're going to have some very, very difficult conversations and decisions to make arising from item 9.5 later in this agenda, which is about our asset management revaluation outcomes. We've heard from the Audit and Risk Committee Chair. A revenue strategy that explores other avenues for revenue generation beyond general rates will be essential to mitigate the massive depreciation adjustment that we're facing. So if someone could clarify for me why it wasn't endorsed. It went to public consultation as part of the annual business plan, but either way, I hope that you'll support this going to the back to the Audit and Risk Committee, because it has been there previously. Thank you.
Through the Chair, the adoption of the annual business plan and budget had the draft strategy in it, revenue strategy in it, so it didn't adopt it. It asked to adopt the annual business plan and budget, which was adopted, and that had the draft strategy within it. So it's still adopting a document with a draft in it. It's still in draft format.
So do we have a seconder? Councillor Thornton? Any discussion? If there's no discussion, I will put the motion. All those in favour? Well, you've already spoken. You want to speak again straight away? Okay, go ahead.
Oh, I just want to close the debate, Your Worship, and ask a question. How much did we spend on preparing the revenue strategy?
Through the chair, I believe it was around about $30,000. Yes.
Thank you. And I understand the intention was to use it as a reference document in our strategic management plan. That was the commentary in the agenda item. So all I am asking is this be referred to the Audit and Risk Committee when at their next meeting they're considering strategies to deal with the asset revaluation. Thank you.
So that will close the discussion. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. Item 7.4 is a motion from Councillor Nicholson regarding the Middleton bypass road progress. It's moved by Councillor Nicholson. You wish to speak to it?
Thank you, Worship. The Middleton bypass road is a significant piece of infrastructure that many residents of Middleton are awaiting. It will remove heavy traffic that goes right through the small township of Middleton, and it is a significant part of the greater project as described in the motion. The intent of this motion is to ensure that the state government is aware of this priority for our community and to gain some feedback for this chamber. Thank you.
So do we have a seconder? Councillor Oliver. Any further discussion? Councillor Kermans?
Just a question, if I could, and I've got a couple of words to say as well, is this one seems to focus on the South Coast Freight bypass route, so I'm assuming it's Mount Barker to Cape Jervis. The freight route that also goes from Culley Creek, is it, to along Nankita Road and then joins up with the Victor Harbour Road, which is also a heavy transport road, or a heavy transport route. Is that something separate to this, or we're talking about another link?
Through the chair, in the attachments to that report on page 41, you'll see that it's talking about the South Coast Freight Corridor going from Cape Jervis through to, yeah, it goes a fair way, but it's made up of a few routes that are joining up, but what this motion is doing is just concentrating on the Middleton bypass section of that complete route.
Okay, that's fine. I just don't want to forget the Nankita Road issues that we've got, and it is a heavy transport route as well. One of the things I looked at was the from Flagstaff Hill Road, where it connects to Lyons Road. Now, we've got a flooding issue that we've just had a report from a hydrologist, and there's some recommendations about levee banks and what have you. Is something like this from Flagstaff to Lyons Road an opportunity to have a look at the retention as when there's floods and what have you, in terms of it creating itself, or it being itself a levee bank, which would then stop water getting into the Middleton area?
Through the chair, the railway was thought of like a levee bank, that it was a built up area and that did guide the water. The bypass road could also be looked at that. I mean, this is just a line on a page at the moment and would need to be investigated more, but of course we would ensure that all that work that was done in the hydrologist's report would be incorporated into any future planning of a bypass road. So I can't answer it today, but it would be at the forefront of my mind.
Any further discussion? Councillor Scott.
I just wonder whether in our contact with the minister,
that we really drill down on the actual bypass of it, of the town. And I know I mentioned this before, but I see the bit from Lyons Row, from Glenford Gully Road onwards through clear land, through private property, as being a fairly expensive thing to do. And I would really like us to drill down on the opportunity of coming down Glenford Gully Road and out onto the main road. I know it is not the preferred option because it involves entering Waterport Road from the eastern end, but I'm just thinking of the money side of it, and I think the main thing is to get the traffic out of Middleton, not necessarily carrying all the way along to Waterport Road. And I just wonder whether we could, I don't want to tell staff what to do, but in terms of talking about the thing, we could do it sort of incrementally, and so we get the traffic out of Middleton, but not necessarily the enormous cost of the new road running right through Barton's old place and out onto beyond the showgrounds, or near Crow's Nest.
Any further discussion? No, so I'll just clarify. This is part of the regional transport study that was done by the LGA and the state government, by Hudson House, and it identifies this as number one, the heavy vehicle freight corridor from Cape Jervis to Murray Bridge. It's currently planned to be a B double, but potentially B triples. So really heavy vehicle bypass road for significant freight in the future. But lots of other roads throughout the state are identified as optimal roads for transport movement. And so when a special local roads bid goes in for funding through the special local roads program, they look at that against this transport study and they determine whether that is the best option to solve the problem. And they've identified there may be other options. So it's a really good program. It's only just been done. It's only probably 18 months from completion at the most. And the reasons for this particular road joining Waterport Road, where it joins it, are very sound because of where it joins the traffic flows, needs roundabouts on Flagstaff Hill Road and at the join with Waterport Road to get the trucks in and out through the traffic. So there's been a lot of work done on it. So Councillor Nicholson, do you wish to? Oh, no. So I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. Right, we go to 8, which is administration reports. 8.1 is the Goolwa Oval Recreation Precinct update. There's a recommendation there with 5 dot points. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Miller, you wish to move it?
Thank you, Worship. Yes, I wish to move recommendations 1 to 3, and I would like to add some words, if I may, and then I'll speak to my additions. So under point 2 only, I would like to add that where it says, yes, no later than the 20th of May council meeting. And that's just for us to see the lease. I appreciate that it may not be executed or finalised, but I think we should, I can't see why we can't by the 20th of May council meeting, just put a date on trying to get this dealt with. And recommendation 3, I'm a little bit disappointed that there's no consideration of any contract cleaning expenses for for this financial year. I guess I'm seeking some guidance from those who've been negotiating. I just, the facility's clearly been cleaned, so I'm happy to, I wanted to put in that they at least cover a quarter of the cleaning expenses, but if that's going to risk progressing this, I'm happy to take advice to just add a date at this point in time.
That will change the intent of the motion. Yeah, so that, Nigel, to be clear.
Through the Chair, first on the no later than Council's 20th of May council meeting, I was talking to the team earlier today, and I mean, we could present lease documents in draft format, but I think that when council want to see it, they want to see it negotiated and finalised to see final products so they know what they're going to be voting on at future. At the moment, we're negotiating with multiple clubs, with multiple stakeholders, and what administration is doing is attempting to bring it to council as soon as possible, and we will continue to do that. I'm concerned at meeting that 20th of May deadline, but at the same time, I am still going to try and bring it to you as soon as possible. So there may be a case that we come to the 20th of May and say it's not there. So I just wanted to make a comment on the due date. As far as you wanting to add more money for the cleaning costs, I don't think you can gauge the room before moving it or not. Either you move it in and get it voted upon up or down, or leave it out. The discussion regarding why the proposal hasn't got cleaning costs was in the attachment that was provided by the clubs, and I haven't really got any more to add to that.
Thank you. On that advice, I'm happy to move it as it was printed, but just if we just deal with 1 to 3, so you can take out the date, and I'll look forward. I want this as much as anyone else, so I'm happy to speak to 1 to 3. If I may, Your Worship. Yeah. So I'm very keen to see this come to a resolution. They've been able to play there, host functions, host finals, and they've got a call out for players to offer remuneration to come and play there. You only have to look at the CEO updates that have been coming every second meeting, and also at item 8.19. Just to see what they've got access to. It may not be perfect, but I can think of many sporting and recreation bodies throughout our council area who would be grateful for even a fraction of the investment that's gone into this precinct. So I guess I'm just looking, because we're not privy to the discussions that are going on, I just want to make sure there's a positive approach to this, that yes, there's been some issues in the past, but you know, we've got to really try and get this sorted out. I do note their comment on the bottom of page 53. Our clubs are doing everything possible to ensure sport and healthy activities are affordable and available to all. This means we cannot simply increase our fees to cover increasing costs. All our clubs are supporting families experiencing hardship with subsidies, payment plans, and simply absorbing their fees. Well, so is council and every other sporting and recreation and group or community focused enterprise, and they're doing it in ageing and in some cases non-complying facilities. So I do completely sympathise with the club and things, but you know, they do have very good facilities to use. They may not be perfect, but and so yes, that's just all I really wanted to say. And we also have to be mindful that we have these other many conflicting priorities. So I'm happy to move 1 to 3 and hope that they get seconded because they're not changing anything. Thank you.
So do we have a seconder for that, Councillor Nicholson? Anybody, any discussion on it? Any further? No? Do you wish to close it? You know, you've done it. So I'll put that 1 to 3 to you. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. So now we have to look at 4 and 5. Is there a mover for 4 and 5? Councillor Thornton? Councillor Scott, seconding it. Is there any discussion? If not, I will put 4 to 5 to you. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. Yep. So we go to 8.2, sorry, which is the Goolwa Wharf variances to accommodate the Riverboat Centre refit. And there's a recommendation with 2 dot points. Move, Councillor Coomans. Do you wish to speak to that?
Yes, I do, yeah. And I'd like to start by saying that this is a rather exciting project that certainly deserves a lot of support. But just quickly, a little bit of history about the beam engine and its importance to the Riverboat Centre. It weighs about 700 kilograms, about half a typical car, and it was originally imported from England in 1853 to construct the Port Elliot breakwater and to help support the Goolwa to Port Elliot Railway, which is the oldest public railway in the British Empire. Afterwards, it was moved to Goolwa to support boat building and assisted with almost 100 significant paddle steamers and barges. So it has a very strong link to the period when Goolwa was the heart of the river trade and shipbuilding. By being able to move the beam engine outside adjacent to the old Wharf railway crane means it can be fired up and then demonstrate its operation and be a key attraction to the Riverboat Centre. I should also point out that the original shed had doors that open out to the southern lawns, and this change is supported by the Heritage Group. This will allow for it to be the centrepiece for field days or steam days or model train and boat enthusiasts at the Wharf, and the aim is to link Port Elliot to Goolwa, to Clayton, to Milang and to Strath. It will bring school groups to the centre in conjunction with the First Nations display in the Signal Point, and then the Riverboat Centre, where there will be hands-on displays with puzzles and links via QR codes to various histories. The Riverboat Centre patronage was around $24,000 per annum, which will link to the Steam Ranger, which has got about a $70,000 per annum patronage, and the horse-drawn tram Invicta about 100. So the whole system is rather unique to Australia. Its movement outside and the movement of other displays to adjacent workshops also maximises the floor space in the centre to allow for the hosting of larger events or functions and allow for more guests. In relation to the front doors, these were originally located in the centre of the shed at Bay 7, where they were fully protected from the weather. Then the Riverboat Centre was moved to the southern end of the shed and with the front door to Bay 3, which meant that the canopy above would barely provide cover and therefore the weather protection would be lost. By moving to Bay 5 means that the canopy does not require to be extended per previous adopted motion, is provided with essential weather protection and will make for a better layout inside the centre with the ticket office near the boat and providing better visibility of what's going on. The lease is incorporating the governance, the finances, the risk management arrangements for the wood storage, the boat, its location and the riverboat are well underway. I am advised weren't quite ready for this meeting but should be ready for the April meeting. The CO tells us that $65,000 approved, if approved, is needed now to enable McMahon's to incorporate them in the build. And finally, in contacting the CO today, the savings in the overhead extension not being needed and that this $65,000 will come from the contingency budget, which is part of the Wharf project. I'd like to think that there is, in reality, no additional expenditure liability for Council and ask you to support this project.
So do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Oliver? And you suspect?
Thank you, Mayor. I think this project is absolutely brilliant, and we are so close to seeing the bright crystallisation of the Oscar W's future on our new wharf. And I just want to acknowledge the engagement and commitment of the Friends of Oscar W. It's been incredible. They've been very patient, very committed and dedicated for a long time. Like Councillor Coomans, I wonder whether the variance can be accommodated within the Wharf project contingency fund of $1 million, or is it now 1.7? This is only 65,000, so it'd be great if that could be fitted in there without it being a separate variance. Thank you.
Well, the extension to the roof isn't being done, so that'll offset it within the thing. So Councillor Miller, you wish to speak to it?
Thank you, Worship. I wish to move an amendment. Thank you. I would like, as printed, but after point 1, I would like the following words added, please. So after as follows, I would like added, on the condition that any changes be accommodated within the existing $250,000 budget for the Wharf Shed fit-out costs for the PS Oscar W tenancy. And I would like a number, I'm happy to read that out again. And then I'd like to add a third dot point that within 12 months of the date of execution of the leases as referred to Council Resolution C23504 of the 18th of December, and I did provide this in advance, a report be provided to Council giving a status update on the strategic priorities identified in the adopted Wooden Boat Strategy 2022-2026. Yes, sorry. So that within 12 months of the date of execution of the leases, as referenced to Council Resolution C23504 of the 18th of December 2023, a report be provided to Council giving a status update on the strategic priorities identified in the adopted Wooden Boat Strategy for 2022-2026. And I'm happy to now speak to why I'm asking for this amendment, Your Worship. The risk of not having a clearly defined agreement in place, I think, has more than been highlighted in the previous item talking about the Goolwa Oval. I pose to myself the following question: when it comes to the commercial tenancy that is going to occupy the other half of the Wharf Shed, would we allow them to take possession and expend council funds without a written agreement or lease or understanding of who is paying for what? I think not. I note prior resolutions references only go back to January 2023. However, this issue of the tenancy has gone on for many years. We made a decision in January that was subject to considerable lobbying by the Friends, and they did a presentation of their vision in October 2023. No mention of a beam engine. Then at the 20th of November, based on their presentation, Council considered governance, financials and risk management practices. No mention of a beam engine. Again, Council considered at the 18th of December the tenancy and conditions. No mention of a beam engine. I understand the Oscar W Friends are working with Council's engaged consultant, Petitions Studios, but now I understand they want to engage their own consultant to design their fit out. And as long as they're using their own funds and it's not coming out of the $250,000, I don't have an issue with that. Now, with minutes to spare, they are asking Council for another $65,000 on top of the $250,000 they already have to make design changes and introduce a new element. I don't have an issue with what they are proposing, but I do have an issue in the context of the entire Council budget, allocating another $65,000 simply because they asked for it, when Council has been very, very specific and made a very explicit decision that none of the $250,000 will be expended until we have executed leases for their tenancy in the Wharf Shed, the management of the PS Oscar W and the Goolwa Community Precinct Woodshed. What I see and what the community sees is Council continually accommodating the demands of the Oscar W. Sorry, I've just lost my page, and I haven't finished. Council has an adopted Wooden Boat Strategy, developed in 2021 and eventually adopted in 2022. It has on page 31 traffic lights defining what is an immediate, that is a 2022 action, what's medium term and what's long term. In the immediate, it says, Strategy 1.2, develop a 5-year written agreement in terms of reference document with each volunteer group allocated as the caretaker of each council-owned historic vessel, and develop formal operating risk management and health and safety procedures with each boat caretaker group relating to the maintenance and operation of each vessel when under the responsibility of the volunteers. This was back in 2022, it was meant to be immediate. Establish an appropriate communication and governance process which enables the effective dialogue and feedback from boat caretakers with council administration to report on the operations, maintenance schedules and activation. And finalise the risk management plan and procedures for the operation and maintenance of the Oscar W. And, interestingly, 1.4, build a dedicated workshop facility at the southern end of the Goolwa Wharf for conducting maintenance, functional operations and providing volunteer respite. But I'm not revisiting that argument. And the strategy talks about a long-term vision for the PS Oscar W, including incorporating into council's tourism marketing initiatives. Yet it seems, as far as I can tell, they want to work in isolation. And 1.5, long-term, review council's ownership of its boats to establish their and connection to council's to ensure relevance and connectivity to the story and maritime history of SA. I don't hear anything about the other wooden boats that we have. It's all about Oscar. And I could go on, and we appear to have a new definition of immediate. This should have been dealt with in 2022. This has gone back and forth for at least 4 to 5 years, and only now, at the death knot, we're being asked to consider additional money. If we agree to this, well, this will be a pretty good example of a below-par decision in my view. Without the changes I am proposing, it's a no from me. And in case you've missed it, the Wharf project later in the agenda is seeking to have the existing capital budget contingency allocated to the Wharf precinct. Let me say that again. The entire capital works budget contingency allocated to the Wharf precinct. We've already exhausted the $1 million contingency that we had for the Wharf, if I understand correctly. So, and then I also ask you to have a look at page 665 of item 9.9, which is the second quarter budget review. And we are increasing the Goolwa Wharf precinct revitalisation project from 17.4 million to 18,110. With the transfer of 710,000 from the major capital contingency fund, reducing that balance to zero. Heaven help us if anything goes wrong at the Wharf or any other capital project that we're working on, and I'm happy to be corrected if this isn't right. So,
Miller, are you coming to the end?
I am coming to the end. I've got one more. No, I've got one. This is very important.
Can I finish talking to you?
Of course.
You've gone over time.
Thank you.
I'm telling you, you need to finish. Thank you.
Okay, I've got one more paragraph to read out, if I may. Or I'm happy if you seek leave of the meeting, but what I see and what the community sees is council continually accommodating the demands of the Oscar friends. Can we please get the agreement sorted out first? We need a reality check of our budget. So why can't they work within the 250,000 that they already have? 250,000. And I look forward to the cost savings they present to the April meeting. And I'd even encourage them to do a deputation to accompanying it. So that's it. Thank you.
So this is the amended motion, the amendment. Do we have a seconder for the amendment? Councillor Gardner. Do you wish to speak to it?
Yes, Your Worship. I endorse everything that Councillor Miller has said, and I'm glad she's been able to say what she did say, because I am really concerned about the money that is being spent on the Oscar W and its volunteers. I'm concerned about the project that they have for their display, and I cannot for the life of me think how on earth they're going to find 250,000 to cover all of the things that they want to do. I do not want to spend the 65,000 at all.
Is there any further discussion? Councillor Nicholson.
A question first, Your Worship. With the amended wording, does that mean so we're not approving a variance of 65,000? We're sort of approving the concept as long as it doesn't go over the already established 300.
Through the chair, my reading of it is that 250,000 was allocated to fit out the Riverboat Centre and workshop. If we allocate 65,000 to that, we'll take 65,000 off the 250. That takes us down to 185 to spend. We've already spent 25 on it, so that, as in getting the designs done, so that takes another 25 off that. quickly calculating in my head, which gives me 160 still to spend on the Riverboat Centre fit out. It's saying do not go over 250,000. If you want to spend 65,000 on doing these elements, then that comes off your 250. It's not in addition to the 250 that's already there.
Any further discussion? Hang on.
Thank you, Worship. I have to admit that reading this, I did feel incredibly uncomfortable about the additional money, whether it comes from the contingency or wherever that extra 65,000 came from. If it was on top of the already established $250,000 budget, I felt very nervous about it. And that's not because of that I don't support the idea, the concept. I don't value what the Riverboat Centre is doing for our community and council. It's because I'm worried about coming into this budget and being really considerate and careful about our spending. I'm thinking about the mum at Baker's Delight this week who had to ask her kids to give back their scrolls because her card wouldn't work. I'm thinking about the 64-year-old woman from Goolwa who is counting down to getting her pension at 67 and is on 3 days a week but now has to go back up to 4 days a week. And I'm thinking about the neighbour of mine who only used their air conditioner for a few hours over the heat wave that we recently had. We have people in this community who simply can't afford for our rates to increase any more than they have to. And we're looking at a budget where we will have to pass on some significant costs to our community. But when we're looking at projects like this, I feel really excited about the 250 that we've already dedicated to this, and I feel excited about what's coming out of it, but I just can't support another 65,000 because we have needs across our whole region that are demanding our attention. Thank you.
Councillor Livingston, did you have to speak?
Yeah, the question I had was in relation to the cost savings. Sorry, I'm trying to get to the point. In relation to the extra roofing, do we have an estimate of what cost savings and how much of the 65,000 would actually go above the 250,000?
Through the chair, with the moving of the doors, the cost of moving the doors comes at about $5,000. We haven't provided an estimate for the overhead roofing side of things. It could have been between 25 and 30,000. It was more a temporary structure which wasn't fixed to the Heritage Wharf, so there will be savings of around $25,000 on that. These are just estimates that I'm coming up with because they hadn't been fully costed. Could you just repeat the question once more? I've answered, yeah.
Is there any further discussion? Councillor Scott?
Just a question, and it goes without saying this is a valuable area of Goolwa, and we know all about that. But we're in some pretty difficult spots here. Is it possible for some of that fit out to be stretched out so that they can perhaps do their beam engine, taking into account that now's the time you can do it while that development's being done, and some of the other stuff that may have been part of the 250 could be stretched out to another financial year? Is that a possibility and if what you just said is, that's not the right way of saying it, of course it's correct, but the 25,000 that you mentioned, that is a saving within that whole thing. So the 250, we're not losing 25,000 doing a roof, are we? So they've actually picked up 25,000. So what they're really looking at is 40,000, isn't it? Is that a fair comment?
Through the chair, I'm doing a lot of calculations in my head on the fly here, because the roof component we're waiting to the shed was to be built before we're having a look at it, before we talk to Heritage and so on. So I can't give you a definite answer for that. What we are bringing to you today is $65,000 to do variances today, because we're going to be laying down slabs of concrete and rebuilding the the shed, and therefore if you're going to move the doors, you're going to do rails, you're going to be able to move the beam engine out. That decision needs to be made today. Ideally, it would have been great if we could bring you a whole budget with exactly what it's going to take to fit out the shed, what it's going to take to do the externals, but we're not in that position today. We did meet with representatives of Friends of Oscar W only a few days ago, and there was talk about, you know, that if we did the design this way, there's cost savings. If we do the designs that way, there'll be even more cost savings. But I can't tell you if it can all be done for $165,000 at the moment. If you're going to take the $65,000 off that plus the $25,000 that we've already spent. I'm coming to you today to say, do you want to do this variance of the $65,000 as we're rebuilding the shed? And the end result of the budget will be bringing forward. You could make a bit more of a decision when we present all the facts to you, when we work out exactly what it's going to cost to fit out the shed. Because we will say, we've spent $65,000 here, this is the other stuff we spent. To finish the shed, the Friends of Oscar W are proposing this, and this. What do you want to fund going forward today and in the future? I'm hoping I've answered your question, but there is a lot of unknowns.
And I don't want to put you in a position where you compromise on that. I appreciate what you felt. I was just trying to find it, work through the forest to get an outcome, that's all.
Through the chair, I believe that the budget discussion should, personal opinion, I'm okay to express personal opinion, I think the budget discussion should be had when you know exactly what's contained in the budget, and just tonight focus on the $65,000.
Is there any Councillor Maidment?
I'm so happy that this amendment has been made. I think it's up to the Oscar W Friends. If they particularly want this, it's one of those nice to haves. I agree that it would be nice to have, but they can work within their 250,000, and they might have to compromise on something that they can leave out for the time being, yet come back at a later time when we're out of this particular budget cycle, and then state their case for funds to accommodate whatever else they want or need or would like to have.
Is there any further discussion? And we're talking about the amendment. So, Councillor Miller, do you wish to use your right of reply?
Oh, thank you, Worship.
For less than 5 minutes.
I won't take that long, thank you. I need to say this is just an amendment. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying just do it within your means. Like, we are all going to have to make some pretty tough decisions on. So, yes, I'm just speaking about the amendment. Just do it within your means.
And that ends the discussion. It's up to you. If this, certainly the rail for the and the doors, if these things aren't done now, you won't be doing them later because they're part of the slab and part of the construction of the buildings. We spend $18 million and we're going to worry about $65,000 to finish it off properly, that we may not be coming out of the budget anyway, going to cover some of the costs, but it's up to you. You're the voters. I'll put it to you. All those in favour? Against? So that's lost. No, sorry, it's carried. So I'll be right. So it's carried. So that's it. So the amendment now becomes the motion. So I'll put that. So now I'll put the motion. I'll put the motion as amended to you. All those in favour? You can't. There's no right of reply because the amendment becomes the motion. I know. I'd love to say a lot more. Okay. Well, let's just double check. And Nigel's telling me you do have a right of reply. I'm not sure, but I'll take the advice. These meeting things have changed over the time. So in that case, you will have, as the mover of the original motion, you will have the right of reply. So go ahead.
Well, I'm a bit flabbergasted actually, because we've just spent $980,000 on a fit out for Signal Point, and this is $250,000 plus a few extra dollars to make this a magical part of Goolwa, and we get opposition to it. In terms of the committee working on their own, they certainly have not. I'm the liaison person between council and them. I attend all of their meetings. There are other discussions as well with the committee. The committee have met with yourself, Mayor, with the CEO, and talked about all of this. They've put together a fantastic budget for the whole Riverboat Centre, and it comes out at within the $250,000, which is what which the CEO nominated that figure for the fit out. And what they're proposing to do, including the 8 themes that they will incorporate into that Riverboat Centre, is absolutely magic. So I think the Friends are a very passionate group, and they've been working very hard to make this Riverboat Centre a showpiece for Goolwa and for the Fleurieu. Sometimes they've been a bit testy, and you know, we all get a bit testy at times. I do sometimes as well. But I think we are all on the same page now, and it's essential that the doors are moved from Bay 3 to Bay 5. That has to happen. And that's, I think the CEO said about 5,000. We had a figure of about 7,000 before to do that. But what it means is that we don't then have to build the canopy over it, because it's all about the weather. We've got to move, before they were at Bay 7 originally, so they were well within the canopy and protected from the weather. So the weather is one of the main issues with the door, but it's also the way they've laid it out, that it means that from a visual point of view, it will be their office, where they will sell the tickets, where they'll sell the merchandise. That'll be just inside door 5, where the door will be at Bay 5, and then you'll then move into the actual precinct of the displays and what have you in the other part. You know, it seems to me that Goolwa has built something like 700 boats over the time, and you know, this group have got professionals. We're not working with a service group or something like that, where it's basically a bunch of volunteers. These people have got such we've got engineers in there, we've got people who can drive boats. These are people who are basically professionals, and what they're trying to achieve is something that we should be supporting, not looking at the end dollar. And let me say again, the 250 was sort of a ballpark figure that the CEO used that would probably accommodate all this, and the Friends have actually worked within that budget to present all of their items. But they need these changes, and McMahon need these changes by the end of March, because they're about to lay the slab. So there's a bit of trust required here from council that things are on track, and we've got the CEO, we've got the Mayor very much involved in all of this, so they're keeping their fingers on it, and maybe me as well, that the $65,000 will bring something that's going to be absolutely magnificent for Goolwa. And it's not a lot of money when you look at the overall cost of the wharf, where we're talking about 15 million plus. It really is peanuts. So I would ask you to not support the amendment, and the amendment is basically that they must use the $250,000 to do this part of the project. It needs to be something in addition, because the 250 is essentially taken up with the entry foyer, with the museum, the workshop, and then the project professional services, It's all been costed. Every item has been costed. So, look, I don't know where to go with this, because quite frankly, when you see this finished, and finished the way we're looking for it to be finished, it will be absolutely magic for Goolwa and the Fleurieu Peninsula. And looking at it and the steam ranger and the horse-drawn trams, it's going to be something absolutely magic for the Fleurieu Peninsula. So, you know, don't cut them short now. They are such a dedicated group, and they really do deserve our support. Thank you.
So that closes the debate. So now I put to you the motion as amended. All right, are we clear about that? The motion as amended. So those in favour? Against? That's carried.
I'm declaring my conflict, Your Worship.
So we go to 8.3, which is West Creek Road closing process. So 8.3 is the West Creek Road's closing process. There's a recommendation there with that with 2 points. It's a two-part recommendation. Move, Councillor Scott. Are you talking to it, or you're not telling me?
I'm sorry. It's self-explanatory. I think it was moved. It was passed last meeting. Just a matter of getting on with it. It's going to take a while. Roads opening and closing always do. So it's a matter of just getting on with it, following due process. It's going to be funded by the original proponent.
For a seconder, Councillor Gardner. Any discussion? No, so I'll put the recommendations. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. You get Councillor Miller back again. Yep. So 8.4 is a rescission motion regarding the holding of a council meeting in Strathalbyn in May 2024. And there's a recommendation there, Councillor Oliver. Seconder.
Sorry, Mayor, in moving it, could I please split the recommendations to be separately considered?
That the recommendation 2 can't be used until the first one's fixed. So it's one's a rescission motion.
Yep.
So if the rescission motion's carried, then we do the next item.
Oh, right, thank you.
Yeah, just to rescind first, you've got to do it separately. You can't move the other one until the other one's done. So is there a seconder? Councillor Gardner? Is there any discussion on the rescind motion? Not Councillor Miller.
Oh, just a question, Your Worship. So we're just rescinding holding it in Strathalbyn at the Strathalbyn Town Hall.
If you read the motion, it's quite clear what we're doing. We're cancelling that previous resolution,
yes.
And then there's a new resolution of where we're going to hold it.
Thank you, Worship. I just was making sure I understood what I was voting on. Thank you.
Is there any discussion on it? Problems? Okay, so I'll put the rescission motion. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. Now we go to recommendation 2, which is the recommendation to hold the meeting or where to hold it. Councillor Gardner. Seconder, Councillor Maidment. Is there any discussion? Councillor Kearns.
Just a question. We have the benefit of having this recorded for a TV program. Has any thought been given about doing the same at the venue in Strath? And if so, is it a possibility?
Through the chair, council has arranged audio recording like we normally would. We don't have the capacity to provide video servicing or streaming. Whether the independent
camera that comes here isn't organised by council, they would be in complete same rights to come to Strathalbyn if they wish to.
Any further discussion or questions? Councillor Scott.
I'm just concerned at just the amount of staff time that's going to be taken up making this happen. I would say quite a lot's happened already. And I just wonder at the merit of doing it, to be quite honest. It won't be cheap. The staff are right away from their base, and I just wonder what the cost of doing this will be as opposed to a normal meeting here, and what the real benefit will be.
Is there any further discussion? Councillor Cummins.
Yeah, I'm not sort of too thrilled about this sort of thing. I've been part of this in the past, and normally when you pick an alternate venue, you have some special occasion, and I understand there is a bit of a special occasion here, but there's also matters on the agenda normally that are very of great interest to the area where you're actually meeting, and I'm not sure what's going to be on the agenda for this particular meeting. And I guess, you know, we keep talking about spending money, and it's okay in some areas, but this one's quite okay, and I'm not sure what the total cost. I've got a figure of about $4,500 for the audio visual. Some mentions being made about there's going to be extra staff costs. So I don't know. It seems I'm quite happy to have our meetings right here.
Councillor Maidment.
Yeah, one meeting in 27 years at Strathalbyn, I think is probably not a bad thing to consider. Bringing the road show to Strath enables the 8,000 residents of that township and nearby towns also to come along to witness what goes on here, and maybe we will get an agenda full of deputations and petitions and matters relating to Strathalbyn. One can only hope. Thank you.
Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Worship. In the last item, 65,000 was peanuts, but 5K for a meeting is considered significant. I find that interesting. Putting that aside, I think there will be one particular item on that May agenda, which is probably we'll be endorsing the draft annual business plan and budget for public consultation. So I think every single person in the district will be extremely interested in hearing the debate on that particular item. So for that reason alone, we'll probably save ourselves a roadshow. Thank you. I hope you will support this, please.
Any further discussion? I'll just clarify a couple of things because it's nice to get the right information. We're talking $9,000, not $4,500, and because there's the audio visual and then there's a hire of the hall. Because it says, well, there's two separate items in here. One says audio visual, the next bit says the hall, and God knows how much it costs us for the staff. Anyway.
Through the chair, it's approximately 4,500. That's all combined. I may not have been clear in the report, but that's audio visual hall hire. Yeah, so just not including staff time, but I think that will be okay.
And I'd just like to clarify, when is the actual 185-year history date? What's the date of the 185-year celebration? Is it in May?
It coincides with History Month in May. That's why it was first mooted, and Strathalbyn is 185 years, celebrating the entire year with various events. I'll give you a brochure later on to show you what.
They're doing it in May, though.
History Month, yeah.
That's right. Just clarify that, just in case if it was in November, it's another financial year. Okay. So any further discussion? No. So I will put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. Eight 8.5 is a tree protection in Alexandrina. There's a recommendation with dot points 1 and 2 or 3. So is there, Councillor Livingston, do you wish to move what are you moving?
I actually had a question, so I'll wait.
Councillor Nicholson, you want to move something? Which one?
May I move 1 and 2, please? Briefly speak to it. I'd just like to thank the administration for bringing this report. It's some really valuable information for this chamber, looking at what levers or mechanisms are currently in place for us to use. Tree protection is an issue that has come up a number of times with me from residents who are really concerned at blocks being cleared for various reasons, and I certainly gained a lot of insight into Council's position in having an impact on that. I think it's really valuable information for us to consider going forward. Thank you.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Oliver? Any discussion? Councillor Livingston?
You're fine. Question: have we given any thought to writing to the minister to see if the minister has any controls over this overlay, just like the inclusion of this overlay in other areas of the state?
Through the chair, just for clarification, you're talking about the regulated and significant tree overlay or the native vegetation?
A minister. Any minister that has the ability to endorse the overlay.
The end result would be that a code amendment would go to the minister for sign-off to introduce those overlays within the planning and design code to apply within this council area. For a significant regulated tree, currently the native vegetation overlay applies across all of Alexandrina Council.
So not the native veg overlay, but are council the only body that has the ability?
I see what you're saying. No, the minister could initiate their own code amendment to introduce regulated and significant trees within Alexandrina Council. It doesn't have to be council that does it. In fact, under the current system, it could be a privately initiated code amendment as well. But I think the point here is that, which hopefully came through in the report, is that we have adequate, probably better controls under the native vegetation overlay than what we would have under a regulated or significant tree overlay.
Okay.
Any further discussion, questions? No, so I will put the recommendation, which is 1 and 2. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. 8.6, dog registration fees. So we have a recommendation there with 2 dot points and 6 sub points. Move, Councillor Oliver.
I'd like to move number 1 and number 2, work 1 and 2.4, sorry, 2.5, and I don't wish to move things.
Can we do that? Thank you. Just
Approve the fees go up by CPI. I don't want to increase all my other fees by more than CPI. Happy to reclassify greyhounds as a standard. No, I don't like 2.2, 2.3, 2.4 and 2.6. I'm sorry, I believe that we're already doing quite well out of the dog revenue versus the costs, so I don't see the justification on an activity-based costing basis to increase these.
Through the chair, just so we've got clarification, and if Tanya wouldn't mind changing it at the same time. So if we change to the dog seizure fee remain at $37.50, is that what you're asking for?
Yeah, I'd be happy to increase it by 4.8%. I'll be happy as a compromise to increase all the fees by the CPI, but just not the significant steps that I mentioned.
Okay, we might actually put those figures in there because what we're wanting to do is send this resolution off to the state government who put it into their system. So, so you're saying 37.50, we just put CPI plus rounded up to that. We'll work that out as you're speaking to it. Same with impound fee, dog registration, late fee, so 17.50 times CPI.
Yep.
Racing greyhounds to be treated as a standard dog, you were happy with it. And number 6, that you want to keep that at 0.
Yes, yes, please.
For those that have got more than 2 dogs. Okay. Nod, David? Yep.
So do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Miller?
Sorry, I have a question. If our bylaw says, so just does the bylaw say it's if you have to apply to have more than 2 dogs? That's not talking about the fee. It's just saying the bylaw means you have to ask at number 6.6.
Through the chair, if you've got more than 2 dogs, I understand we go out and visit the home. We make sure that things are in place. I'll ask David to come forward and just explain that a little bit more. Is it legislative, is the question?
Through the chair, it is legislated for anyone that owns more than 2 dogs or would like to have more than 2 dogs to apply to council for that process. It doesn't specify a fee within the bylaw, but as we're looking at it as a fee for service, that's why the recommendation was put in there to come in line with other councils that offer the same bylaw process.
So do we have a seconder? Councillor Scott? Do we have any discussion? So I'll be happy with that change.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Yeah, what's happened to item 3 in that particular motion approves the exemption of pro rata registration fees for new dog registrations received during the month of June in each year.
What do you say?
We're not dropping that out, are we?
So Millie, got another question?
Just a quick question. I'm just mindful that $0 to $70, what the reasoning was behind that, and do we get many applications, just given that it's a fee for service and this takes officer time and it's very transparent? I'm just wondering how many we get and if it's reflective of the cost to do it.
Through the chair, I'll have to take that question on notice regarding how many applications we do. It is in line with neighbouring councils to charge that fee, because if there isn't a fee that's charged, it becomes a fee for services picked up by our ratepayers. So our team is spending the time to undertake those applications. If you wanted to keep less than 2 dogs, it's a standard registration process, but there is time to investigate because there is an increase in dog waste management, there's barking dog complaints, so all of those flow-ons do cost ratepayers. So that's why there was consideration to put the fee at 70, which was in line with neighbouring councils that do charge an application fee. Hope that answers your question.
So any further discussion on this, Councillor Nicholson?
Your Worship, may I propose a variation to the mover?
You can suggest a variation, yes.
I'd like to suggest that we do include that $70 fee at number 6, Councillor Oliver.
You happy to include the
I'd
$70?
be happy to compromise to that, given that there is an inspection process that goes on. But I do make the point that the dog number 3 is registered and does receive a registration fee.
That's right. So the seconder was Councillor Scott. You happy with charge of $70? Yes or no? I mean, it's staff time going out to do it. That's what you're trying to recoup.
I think it's going to be handed, but for the purpose of the exercise, I'll agree.
Sorry, for the purpose of the exercise, I will agree. I believe it's heavy-handed, it's excessive, but...
That's all right, that's all, thank you. Any further discussion? Councillor Maidment.
Yes, I'm happy to see this fee reintroduced because with the ever growing number of complaints about barking dogs and having to send compliance officers out to have a look at that. And I know of very many incidents where there's 4 and 5 dogs per household, and it's great to capture the fact that they may or may not be registered. Hopefully they are registered, but in quite a few cases they may not be. So to send staff and spend the time to go and scope those particular incidents is well worth the $70. Thank you.
Councillor Thornton.
We're all looking at the revenue strategy for Alexandrina Council, and we've been given one right in our faces here today, and I'm shocked that we're going to cut the fees when we could be making money and helping reduce rates for our council region. I think what was proposed was perfectly fine. Just don't get your dogs seized, don't have them impounded, you wouldn't be paying these fees. I think we should have left it as is.
Any further discussion? So, Councillor Oliver, do you wish to provide a reply on this? No. So I'll put the motion or recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. I'd say we would have just set a new world record for dog registration fee deliberation. 8.7, I figured we'd do an hour on that one, that's normal. 8.7 is the 2023 Village Conversations Community Engagement Summary, and there's a two partners, the two recommendations that we receive and also allocate the funding. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Nicholson, you wish to speak to it at all? Yep.
Thank you. I read this with great interest, and it's wonderful to see all of the feedback from our communities presented to us. I love the village conversations. I find them so valuable. I support the chosen projects for the $250,000. The only thing I did want to mention is Port Elliot, who I have been presented a list of priorities from the Port Elliot Town and Foreshore Group Improvement Association, and their number one priority is town greening in Port Elliot. So I just wanted to flag that because we do also have an opportunity presented to us for town greening. I know that comes with a significant cost that we all have to give great consideration, but I just wanted to flag it here. I hope that this motion will gain the support of the Chamber. Thank you.
So do we have a seconder? Councillor Livingston? 1 and 2, yep. So is there any discussion? Councillor Scott?
Yes, it'd be remiss of me not to raise the situation of the cemetery shelter. The Cemetery Advisory Committee were completely alarmed at a $75,000 price tag on the shelter. It seemed just extraordinary, completely out of the field. And I know there's a lot of concern. They were just shaking their heads when that was presented. And I personally would like us to explore a different way of doing it. I mean, that was just huge for just, 4 posts and a lid. And running up $75,000, and it's not just me. It is the committee. The last meeting we had, they were really concerned about it, and I can't let it go through without drawing your attention to that. And I would like to see some amendment made to that, whether we just put a 30 nominated figure or have it taken out and temporarily taken out and the structure reviewed, because it was just extremely excessive.
I don't think it's 4 sticks and a lid. And what are the other upgrades?
May I, through the Chair, just add that what that project includes in this budget bid is the shelter, of course, but also the slab, the detailed design and engineering, the development approval, the site preparation, like ground vegetation and clearing, the earthworks, gutters, downpipes to connect a rainwater tank in, also bench seating and tables under the shelter, rubble pathway, connecting in a rain tank, possibly there's discussion where that rain tank's coming from, and also some minimal landscaping and interpretive signage. So it's bundled in as a sort of more project than just the shelter. But I take your comment.
So is there any further discussion on it? Any further? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Worship. Just very quickly, I too enjoyed reading the village conversation feedback. It was really, really insightful. Community-driven initiatives are really important. I thank the staff for the comprehensive report. I know it takes a lot of time. It's always interesting interpreting the feedback and converting it into something meaningful. We need to think, though, I think in future about how cost-intensive it must have been to do all those village conversations in that format. I do recognise that this is actually budgeted for. There was a budget of $250,000 for village conversation initiatives. So I think there's still a little bit of balance left over, but I think these are great projects to support, and the communities all there will be very appreciative. Thank you.
Any further discussion on it? No. So I'll just say that I think I tend to agree about the 75 is a bit of a shock. We put the RSL built a brand new gazebo. It's octagonal at the Currency Creek Cemetery, which is absolutely beautiful, on a concrete slab with seating inside it and wind sheltering for under 40,000. But then again, it was a local contractor. We didn't have to go through all the procurement. Things just seemed to cost us too much, unfortunately. It's a bit sad. Councillor Nicholson, did you wish to pick up? So I'll put the recommendations. All those in favour? Against? Against? It's carried unanimously. 8.8 is the Community Transport Services informing budget consideration there, and there is a recommendation there before you, Councillor Miller. You're moving that?
Oh, sorry, no, Wish. I was just declaring my general conflict of interest. If it's just as it's an information report, so I'll stay in debate. I won't debate, but I will vote. But if it goes into any kind of contractual or costing discussion, then I will leave. Thank you.
So do we have a mover? Councillor Scott, you're moving it? Yes. Yep. And do we have a seconder? Councillor Livingston? Is there any discussion? If not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. 8.9 is the Fleurieu Regional Aquatic Centre second quarter budget for 2023-24, and there's a recommendation that we receive that recommendation. Moved Councillor Maidment. Second Councillor Gardner. Is there any discussion? No, so I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. 8.10 is the Adelaide Hills Regional Waste Management Authority second quarter budget review 2023-2024.
Thank you, Wish. Just same as for the previous item. I've got a general conflict, I believe, but if it goes into any kind of discussion, I'll leave. Thank you.
Is there a mover for that? Councillor Nicholson. Second, Councillor Maidment. Any discussion? If not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. 8.11 is the Adelaide Hills Regional Waste Authority and Fleurieu Regional Waste Authority response to the merger, and there's a report that we received.
I have a material conflict of interest because this will have a relationship to my employer, so I will leave. Thank you.
I remind you that I am on the board of this, and I don't think it has any effect, and I will stay in the chamber, but I just, again, draw your attention to it.
You represent council on the board, that's what you're there for.
Sorry, correct.
Yep. So there's a recommendation that we receive the report. Moved, Councillor Gardner. Second, Councillor Livingston. Any discussion? Councillor Oliver.
Yeah, I'd like to thank the parties for the letter and their brief consideration. It is disappointing, as there are clearly are opportunities for enhancement through a possible merger, and these obviously there's not the appetite to consider these at this time. So due to this unwillingness, I do have to admit that there are no structural efficiencies to be had in this matter. Perhaps we should look at other opportunities, such as commercial outsourcing or competitive tendering, and I would really like to see some benchmarking data on the performance of both of these organisations. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Let's get Councillor Miller back again. So 8.12 is the 2023 to 2028 Community Land Management Plan, a 6-monthly report for the 21st of August 2023 until the 29th of February 2024, and there's a recommendation there with 2 dot points. Move, Councillor Gardner. Second, Councillor Livingston. Any discussion? Councillor Maidment.
Just a question: with all these wonderful undeveloped reserves that have been handed to council, is any work being done to initial studies being done to look at how we're going to go about looking after these particular reserves? Because I notice lot 301 Braemar Drive, I believe, has got that many pine trees on it that are pest trees, and are we looking to, in the future, not tomorrow or not next year, but looking at how we're going to manage those?
Through the Chair, earlier this year we presented a document on how we're going to maintain the various reserves, and we would put in, well, these ones would either be contained within that already or will need to be put in there. I'm just having a quick look over it at the moment, but there is a lot of reserves out there, and that's why we don't maintain them all at Category 1, and we have different categories for them and maintain them in different ways. Is that what you're asking? I mean, every land that we have to work out exactly how we're maintaining it with the limited resources that we have.
Sorry, because it says here they've just been added, so I just thought, because they're recent, has there any preliminary work been done on where they sit within the categories of reserves?
Right, through the Chair, any gifted assets or assets that come onto our books, we'll need to categorise and make sure that we maintain them. That's why when we see the words gifted assets, we don't always think that they're a lovely gift to receive, because they do come at a cost and do need resources to maintain.
Any further discussion? No. But nice to get. This is the problem. Every time they do a development subdivision, we inherit some land as part of the requirement. Usually the developer's going to give us the worst piece, which is understandable if they can get away with it. And at the moment, if some of the developments we're getting in Strath and in Goolwa, we're getting beautiful playgrounds put in and landscape around them. They are first class. And this is the trouble. We've got to maintain them, and we've got to put a value on them for depreciation, because they become ours. And then every time we go to sell some land which is just not being used for anything that we could use to offset some of these costs, nobody wants anybody living next door to them, you know. And it's just an ongoing cost. We've just got to start make some hard decisions on this land stuff, because there's a lot of land costing us the money and depreciating it, and Yeah, and all of our residents are paying for it. But we've got some really good stuff coming on, so it's great. So I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. 8.13 is the Strategic Land Program Group 1. It's a proposal to revoke a community land classification in Strathalbyn, and there's a recommendation with recommendation 1 and 2. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Maidment. Seconder, Councillor Oliver. Is there any discussion? Not. I will put the recommendations, all the three, there's three dot points really. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. .14 is the Strategic Land Program Group 1, a road opening on Woodrow Drive, Milang. There's a recommendation with 3 dot points. Move Councillor Livingston. Second, Councillor Maidment. Any discussion? Yep.
I just wonder at the amount of work that goes into this sort of thing, and whether it's becoming a cost burden and a work burden for the staff. I looked at this particular one, and it's been a road for 100 years. It's got bitumen on it now, and now our staff are having to trawl through, and this wouldn't be just a tick and flick thing. Doing all this preparation for this sort of thing, I'm sure would be quite demanding. And I'm just wondering, is it prudent for us to go on digging around, running down rabbit holes for these obscure things that have gone on? I mean, how it can be that it's gone for all this time without being identified as a road when it's a bitumen road and everything is beyond it. But are we really pushing the boundaries, trying to get it all clarified now? And can it be a sort of a thing when we've got plenty of staff time, a bit of money floating around, we can sort of fill in time doing this sort of thing? I don't want to sort of railroad staff, but I just wondered, I asked the question because this would be time consuming. My goodness, it would be getting it all sorted out. But I just pose the question, is it demanding, and should we be doing it later?
Through the Chair, I always think it's good to do the governance involved in our properties, and even your statement, it's been a road for 100 years. Well, it hasn't been a road for 100 years, it's been something else, and it's time that we declare it as a road so that it can start being a road. It is very time consuming what we're doing in the property area. It is a rather large burden on what we're doing, but it's not always cleaning up these little bits and pieces. We are also presenting very strategic land to you to make decisions upon. And I think the more that we can clean up, the better it is going to be for future generations. I think it's a burden that's worth doing, but I also want to ensure that the burden that we're doing is offset by sometimes when we're presenting land that needs important decisions made on it, those important decisions be made to offset, which includes those of disposals.
Any further discussion? It also provides access to the marine rescue facility there, which permanent access, which is better. So I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Councillor Scott, can you stay with us, please? All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. 8.15 is the Milang Environmental Centre Incorporated, a new lease request. And there's a recommendation there with 3 dot points. Move Councillor Miller. Is there a seconder? Councillor Gardner. Any discussion? No, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. 8.16 is the Emergency Recovery Plan. Incident Operations Manual and Emergency Management Policy, and there's a recommendation there with 3 dot points. Move, Councillor Scott.
And if I just may speak to it, very interesting to see this done. It seems to be done quite quickly, and it reminds me of the resource directory that we used to have, and our sort of disaster plan that we had quite a few years ago when I was involved in that field. It's quite the documents are quite complex. There's quite a lot of reading, and so I may have missed it, but I didn't note any reference to the management of people with animals. And why I raise that is that when the Cuddly Creek fire occurred, there was a great influx of people with horses to the Strathalbyn Polo and Recreation Ground from all over the place. They knew that ground and they went in, and some needed veterinary attention, and there was need for lighting and that sort of thing, and temporary yards. And I just wondered, and it may be in there, and I'm stand corrected if I've overlooked it, but I tried to read a bit of it. But I just wonder whether it'd be prudent for somewhere that sort of thing to be referenced in one of those documents, so that we can handle it. So we can do a bit at the Port Showgrounds, which is a good spot for animals because there's a fence right around the arena and the whole showgrounds is contained. But there will be, I believe, when disaster strikes, and particularly in the form of bushfire, there will be a gravitation of people towards a spot that is safe for a 24-hour period, or it could be longer until they can get back. So I just thought I'd raise that with it, but a very extensive document. I'm so glad it's brought up to scratch now, and we've got it, because we're likely to have more of these unusual things happening, and it's great to be prepared. And the staff and our resources list from the council resources was excellent in the way of water tankers and graders. The only other thing that I wanted to raise was that it was stated in the area of graders that the grader could work no closer than 2 hours in front of the fire. Now, that is, I just question that, because I know when we had the fire that went through from near the airport across Flagstaff Hill, Brian Dugmore was the grader driver, and he did a tremendous job and went along with the fire not far behind him and out to one side, and he graded across the whole face of the line across the face of Flagstaff Hill, and helped to stop the southerly, it's helped to confine the fire anyway. And I just wonder whether that 2 hours, whether that is an unreasonable restriction to be placed in a document where, you know, there's probably, I don't know whether it allows for flexibility, but I think it would be personally think it'd be counterproductive if we did not allow our grader drivers to work closer than 2 hours to the fire. They need to be safely, obviously safely. I'm not disputing the safety side of it, but I think you can do a lot of work, good work, even a quarter of an hour, half an hour in front of a fire when you know it's coming through, and that can be obviously. And I think they need to be given some flexibility so they can go right up if the fire's slow moving, and it's not an Ash Wednesday day, but it's still a nasty fire, that they have got the allowance to go and nip through. If it's open ground, grader can just drop his blade about half an inch and skim the ground and go fairly quickly and do a great deal of work. Anyway, you've got my drift. That's all I thought might be an idea to include.
What we can do is, I'll ask you later where exactly that is in the operations manual. The operations manual and recovery plan are plans that are
like operational, that are normally endorsed by executive, but because we've had some previous reports on emergency management, we wanted to bring them to you today. So I'll make a note of that and just check. So we do use a lot of template documents that have gone through the local government risk services. So we'll just make sure that that's not something that they've put in and we haven't considered a risk in addressing that one. I just can't remember seeing that one in there, so I'll have a look.
But thank you, it was a great job.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Oliver? Any further discussion? Councillor Nicholson?
Thank you. I also wanted to commend this report. I read through it carefully. Some of the takeaway messages that came strongly to me were council's role in developing resilience in our communities and mitigation of emergency situations. I think that we're working on that. We're doing well. We certainly have a focus on it at the moment. It's about developing partnerships and preparing our communities as best as we can, but it is also going to take some investment from council in the future, looking at where we need to spend to keep our communities safe and give them that confidence that we're doing so. So I know that will be something that we have to consider down the track in the coming years. I did just have one question that I hoped to clarify. I noticed in the track changes document that points 8.3 and 8.4 were removed, and I just was curious to the reasons behind that. So
Could you just give me a page number if
yeah,
you've got
sure.
that?
So yeah, I'll just scroll down to them. Sorry. I'm just going to the attachments.
I think it's 349.
So I'm on page 349 of the agenda. So it's relating to availability of council employees and availability of plant and equipment.
Through the Mayor, we went through a consultation process on a document, which meant that I also had the opportunity to comment on this document, and these removals were mine. The reason why I asked for them to be removed was because we work under a risk framework. So the opportunity to say yes or no to support any situation is always with council, and there shouldn't be anything, I don't believe, in a document which compels us to provide support, but that we assess risk and then we can look to provide that support on the ground.
Thanks, Alan. Any further discussion? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. So we go to 8.17. It's an appointment to the Fleurieu Regional Aquatic Centre Authority Board, Audit and Risk Management Committee and the Southern and Hills Local Government Association, and there's a recommendation there with 3 dot points. Moved Councillor Livingston, seconded Councillor Nicholson. Any discussions or questions? No. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. (8.18) is the declaration of prescribed officers, and there's a recommendation there with 2 dot points. Move Councillor Scott, seconded Councillor Oliver. Is there any discussion? No, so I'll put that recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. 8.19 is the Chief Executive Officer's report. There's a recommendation there with 4 dot points. Is there a mover? Move Councillor Maidment. Seconder, Councillor Oliver. Are there any questions relating to Nigel's report? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Worship. I just wanted to draw attention to the paragraph under the dot point on page 421. It's really significant, and I think that will be where the focus needs to be. I just wondered, one of the independent audit risk committee members asked at the meeting, but I can't read my own writing or recall what the answer was, so I'm just going to ask it. Sorry. With 15 weeks to go, where are we at with the delivery of our capital works program? Are there any projects at risk, any emerging issues? And I'll let you answer that, but I just wanted to say thank you for the overall update. I really do appreciate those. But yeah, about the capital works delivery is my question.
Through the chair, I might actually ask Mr. Harvey to come forward and answer the question about with the capital works program. Is there any red flags? I do commend Alan this month for actually going through the attachment in the report and learning every line of the capital works program in there that's associated with his team. He's got a much better overview.
Through the Mayor, thank you, the CEO, for his faith in me, knowing all the projects that are on that report. The report itself should be relatively, or the project report should be relatively self-explanatory. If there are any things on there that you have concerns about or would like further information on, then please let us know which ones you'd like information on, and we can provide that to you directly or as a group. There's quite a few projects on there, so it'd be good to hone in on those ones.
Sorry, I can just clarify that one of the members asked about the delivery of the capital works program. I think he's something like, there's $43 million on the program that we need to deliver in the next 15 weeks. Thank you.
Through the chair, we've done a cash flow of what we're going to be spending in this financial year. I think that what we'll do is distribute that to council members via our elected member portal to provide that update.
Any further discussion or questions? Councillor Scott.
I just want to refer to number 2 and just from my point of view acknowledge the work that Trish has done, particularly in the last few weeks to get all the financial things up to scratch. So thank you and congratulations, and hope you have a good break.
Any further discussions? If not, I'll put the recommendations. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. We go to item 9 is section 41, committees and advisory panels minutes, and that's Livingston.
I was just hoping to move a motion that we move 9, 11 and 9, 12 to be dealt with now, just given the gallery, if that's possible.
Given the size of the agenda, I'd just like to keep us going as we are in the agenda as it is. It's it's only going to take there are only reports we're going to go through now. There's no massive debate going to be involved in them. Section 9 is section 41, committees and advisory panels minutes and reports. 9.1 is minutes of the section 41 audit and risk committee of the 9th of February 2024. Is a recommendation that we receive that report. Moved Councillor Oliver. Seconder Councillor Maidment. Any discussion? Put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. 9.2 is a report from the Section 41 Audit and Risk Committee Policy Review, Public Interest Disclosure Policy, and there's a recommendation of two recommendations. Moved Councillor Nicholson. Seconder Councillor Oliver. Any discussion relating to that? If not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. 9.4 is the minutes of the Section 41 Audit Risk Committee of the 8th of March 2024, and there's a recommendation that we receive and note those minutes. Moved, Councillor Oliver. 9.4. Where'd 9.3 go? Hang on. Sorry. Sorry, I missed 9.3. So 9.3 is a report from the Section 41 Audit Risk Committee, revocation of employee entertainment hospitality policy. There's a recommendation there. There's two recommendations. Moved, Councillor Oliver. There's seconded, Councillor Maidment. Any discussion relating to that? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Sorry, now we go to 9.4, which is the minutes of the Section 41 Audit Risk Committee from the 8th of March 2024. It's moved by Councillor Oliver already. Seconded, Councillor Miller.
Can
Yep, speak to it.
Yes, just very quickly. There's an internal audit function, and the budget, I think the internal audit function has now been established and the charter, but the budget in this year's annual business plan was $50,000, and I just wanted to check if now we can move on that and establish a future program for internal audits. And I have another question as well.
Through the Chair, there is a budget of $40,000 for this year, so now that the Charter has been confirmed by the Audit and Risk Committee, we will proceed to enact the Charter.
And my other subsequent question was just about depreciation. What have we got budgeted in the swims, stormwater parks and open spaces? And will those values be reflected in our 23-24 financial statements?
Through the Chair. I don't have the actual depreciation number for those particular classes in front of me, but the revaluation project for those will be done in this current financial year, currently underway. So the balance sheet adjustments will be made this financial year, but the depreciation will be in 24-25, and an adjustment for the budget forecast has already been made for those.
Yeah. Any further discussion or questions? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Shall we go with them? 9.5 is a report from the Section 41 Audit Risk Committee Asset Management Re-evaluation Outcomes 2023. Is with a recommendation there with 5 dot points. Move, Councillor Miller.
I'm happy to move the recommendation from the Audit and Risk Committee, but I did want to actually make a recommendation for Council. So normally there's two. There's a recommendation coming from the Audit and Risk Committee, and then there's a recommendation that Council endorses the recommendation. So I'm happy to do what's there, but I just would also like to beef up a part 2, which is pretty much just additional clarity around point 1, and I'm happy to read them out, but I can't obviously so in doing this, Councillor Oliver, I was really grateful that he added dot point 1 at the that's printed in the agenda at the Audit and Risk Committee, but I just wanted to put some context around what the level of materiality means. So that when the community reads this and they say, well, what's the level of materiality that is going to affect our future budgets? And it is that the affirmed revaluations have resulted in an increase in revalued asset costs of $157 million and a corresponding increase in annual depreciation of $4.4 million. The materiality of this expected increase in annual depreciation represents 9.9% of 2024 financial year adopted budget rates revenue. That's if we were to fix all of this in one hit. That is I'm just trying to give everybody some context around what this means, because I had to get my head around it myself. And I think this validation process, and the Audit and Risk Committee Chair explained this really well. It is, I think she called it best practice, I can't remember the exact description, and I agree that the observation one of the other members made, that there will be many eyes on this in the sector, because this is not just going to be isolated, and how we deal with this and address it and communicate it to our community is going to be very, very important. And the frequency of these condition assessed asset audits and financial evaluations can't be underestimated, because they do have very big inherent risks. And if we don't align this with our long-term financial plan and our asset management plan, it will lead to significant impacts, not in just in one annual business plan. It is something that will impact our community and a future chamber and future ratepayers. So I think that's the space we probably should be more in than down in the operational things. But I'm really, as challenging as it's been and difficult to read, my head hurt, my heart hurt, my eyes hurt. I just want to also acknowledge the significant work that the CEO has done since pretty much the day he walked in the door, and the finance team, and we now have accurate and up-to-date data that gives us much more confidence, and I'm very grateful. As much as it's very difficult, I'm grateful that we now have that level of accuracy. Thank you.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Nicholson. Do we have any further discussion? Do you have any summing up?
Thank you, Worship. I've got lots to read out, but I think we've all understood the gravity, so I won't, because I'm mindful of time. But with the accounting policy and the asset revaluation plan, it requires frequencies for each asset class, and I just wondered if we're going to make mention of those frequencies and really commit to how often we're going to do this. We can't leave it every 3 to 5 years. Should we articulate those somewhere? I think that was the only other comment that I had to make. I think we're going to have to help the community understand about this. That's going to be our challenge. When we have accounting costs of assets going from 244 million to 402, that's an increase of 64%. It takes a bit to get your head around, and it does have an impact, and it is serious. It's not just on paper. And, we are caught in this pincer movement of unit costs and life cycles. And I just want to say I'm grateful, but I'm looking for help in how I communicate this to my community. So I guess the next Audit and Risk Committee meeting will help guide us in that regard, or if not before.
Is there any further discussion? Oh, that closes the discussion. So I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? Anybody against? It's carried unanimously. I thought we were going to slip through these quicker. It's going to be a talk fest, I can see. So Councillor Livingston, I appreciate Ken sitting here. With the leave of the meeting, I'd like to bring 11 and 12 forward. Are you happy to do that? Anybody against it? Anybody against it? Right, so we'll go to 9.11. So 9.11, which is on page 692 of your agenda, is the minutes of the Section 41 Climate Emergency and Environment Committee from the 5th of February 2024. There's a recommendation that we receive and note the minutes of the meeting held on the 5th of February 2024. Moved, Councillor Livingston. Is there a seconder? Councillor Nicholson. Is there any discussion? So I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. 9.12 is the report from the Section 41 Climate Emergency and Environment Committee. It's budget allocations for an enhanced township greening program. There are 2 extensive recommendations there. Is there a mover? A question?
Can I just ask what we're doing here? Are we, in the first step, just noting the recommendation that came from them? Because I'm happy to do just one, as long as we're not making a decision, because I'd like to...
No, you're starting to get it, you're not moving a second. They're both being noted and received. And one's just probably what the committee sent us, and one's what the administration sent us.
Okay, I'm happy to do one. I think this is important. I'll just do one.
So you're moving one?
I'm moving that we note the recommendations that have come from the committee, not making a decision on them.
Oh, so you're moving recommendation 1, yeah. And you wish to speak to it?
Actually, yes, I do, because it would have been helpful, I think, and really important for, before we considered this, that we worked through the budget and the financial statements and we fully understood the implications of what the other recommendations from the Audit and Risk Committee mean for us into the future. That's the only comment I'll make. Thank you.
So do we have a seconder? Councillor Livingston? Any discussion? Councillor Scott, if you want to have a discussion with somebody else, you probably have to go elsewhere, I'm afraid.
Well, I have a question then, if I may.
You have a question? Yes.
Yes. I was trying to seek clarification from the mover. By moving one goes down to I. Is the mover moving right down to I, or is it only the one at the top without the A to I?
So one is 1A to I. No, there's no question about that. Is any further discussion? Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you. In receiving these notes, I just wanted to acknowledge the sort of the brave bid for this amount of money in the upcoming budget. This is a really important priority for our communities, as we can see in A2040. I hear people across Alexandrina talk about town greening and the importance of trees in our communities. I think this is something that will be very difficult to consider in the budget and in the second recommendation coming to us. But it's important that we all consider how much we possibly can give to a town greening project. It does take money. We are in an emergency situation. We have declared that, and we have people in our communities who want to see some action on this. So I would love to see all of this, these recommendations be implemented. I know that we're facing significant challenges in doing that, and I hope that we can have some really robust conversations around how much we can possibly accommodate this year. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Councillor Milang, do you have anything you want to say to sum it up? No? So I'll put the recommendation, which is recommendation 1. So we're not spending any money. This is just a recommendation from the committee. I'll put that to you. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Then we go to dot point 2, which is, I think, just with this set recommendation 2, I understand what you said. There's an opportunity here at the moment for us to get some community groups, we can't do it as a council, to apply for funding under the grassroots program through the landscape boards. There's a significant amount of money out there at the moment that it's open, and community groups are the groups that can apply and get that funding. So just make that point to you. So there's a recommendation 2. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Livingston. Is there a seconder? Councillor Nicholson. Is there any discussion on recommendation 2? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Worship. Given these have moved all together, I can't support it. And I'm referring to the answers that I asked at the last council meeting that I put on notice, and the answers, so I'll just read them. Council has not consulted the community and nor endorsed a township greening strategy. Council's Climate Emergency and Environment Committee have recently recommended this. This would contain important strategy for the planting of trees and the other biodiversity vegetation. The implementation plan would help to inform what we plant where. The establishment of a township greening strategy and implementation plan is I understand, in the draft 2024 budget, but without that strategy and implementation plan, I'm not comfortable supporting an additional $600,000 in the budget, draft budget, before we've done that first step. That's $46 per person on top of what they pay in rates. Without having an opportunity to scope this project, I understand what you're saying, Your Worship, and I do understand the recommendation, but we've just got some huge challenges ahead of us, and it's not that we don't think it's a priority. We've just got to manage like we would, and I acknowledged the CEO's advice earlier this afternoon, back to the chair of this committee. It's just a really unfortunate situation that none of us ever imagined we'd be facing, but we have to face it. We owe it to our community to be really, really considered in how we make these decisions, and it's going to be felt across the board. We're not going to be targeting just any particular subject matter, I should think. So I can't support this at this point in time. Thank you.
So any further discussion on this one? So Livingston.
Just noting the Chamber's reaction, I'm just wondering whether there'd be any utility in wording the recommendation so that the Chamber considers the budgets put forward by the committee in our 24-25 budget considerations, rather than just recommending that they be included, or that the project itself be considered as part of the budget considerations up to an amount, so there's more discussion to be had. Is there any possibility of...
Can I just jump in? We're just looking at an option to put in there, right?
Through the Chair, what the officer's recommendation does is put in the money to do the township greening strategy, but it also recommends that we go out to the community with the project. It's not immediately funded, but we say to the community, we have an opportunity to put money into the budget of up to $600,000 to do more, and this is how much it's going to cost. Give us the feedback. It may put in an extra 100,000, 200,000, up to 600,000. But I want to listen to the community. I want to take this exciting project to the community and ask for their feedback. I agree that it's been high in the A2040 strategic plan that they want the township greening strategy. Now let's go to the community and say, we can give you this, but this is how much it's going to cost. Are you willing to do that? And based upon their feedback, we can then bring back a further report to council saying, based upon the budget, this is what we can achieve with those funds. I do think that with the 600,000 in 24-25, it may be a lot of money, considering that, as Councillor Miller was saying, we really need to do a strategy first. But I also heard from the committee that there is opportunity to do some of the reserves first before you go out and do the township greening strategy. So this motion is actually trying to achieve what everyone's saying, but first going out to the community and saying, based upon trees, based upon finances, what do you think we should do, instead of us making a decision now to put all that money into the budget without having a look at the financial ramifications. We also need to have a look at the budget as a whole, and as per my email earlier today, if the strategy for this council is to focus on township greening, then what are we going to pull out to allow this to go in? And there's some of the stuff that may come out in the deliberations. When we go out to the community and talk about this strategy, we can also suggest some of the stuff that may be pulled out. So I actually believe that this is a compromise resolution which does bring the project to the forefront of the community mind, so they know what it's all about and then they can discuss it further.
And that closes the debate. Oh, you want to keep going? Yep, keep going.
Thank you. Just one more question to clarify 100%. This recommendation, we're not spending money, we're putting it in the consideration for the budget.
Through the Chair, just to clarify, what we have in the budget at the moment is 80,000, additional 80,000. There is already 25,000 in the budget for next year. So what that's saying is that we'll develop a strategy for around 105,000, Alan, is that where we're at? But also that we'll use a lot of in-house expertise to achieve this result. So it is doing the township greening strategy, which the committee has been calling for. We're just saying instead of the amount of 210,000, we're saying that we can achieve the same amount by just adding in the additional 80,000 to existing budgets. We will do the strategy, and that will formulate the base, and then we'll ask the community how much we want to spend. And I also think that if you raise the expenditure in 24-25 by a little bit for the greening strategy, then that's a base for the next year that you can then build upon, as opposed to doing nothing in the next year. And then once the strategy is built, then putting the money in the year after. So if we can start to build up to that amount over a number of years, or even if the community say, no, we've got to get there immediately, then we can react to that. So I'll just sum it up to say the township greening strategy is in the draft budget as a funded project, but the 600,000 is in as an unfunded project to be discussed. But the end result is that we will be bringing a budget to the April meeting to go out to community consultation, and then we'll bring back the feedback from the community at the June meeting for council to decide upon. So council gets to decide exactly what we're going to go out to the community and say is funded and unfunded, and then after their feedback, we'll then determine again what is funded and unfunded at the June meeting prior to that adoption at the June meeting.
That closes the discussion. No, it closes the debate. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? Against? That's carried unanimously. So now that fixes those two. Thanks. Sorry, Ken, if I'd have realised what was in between where we were and where we are, I would have gone earlier. Thank you. So now we go back to we go back to 9.6, which is on page 567. Right, so 9.6 is a report from the Section 41 Audit and Risk Committee. It's financial statements for 2022-23, and there are two recommendations. Is there a mover for that, Councillor Oliver? Is there a seconder? Councillor Nicholson? Is there any discussion? Councillor Miller?
Thank you, Worship. I would feel much more comfortable if we would deal with the recommendation coming from the committee and then what council's resolving, but we've dealt with them together.
Doing them together.
Yeah, no, I understand that. So I just want to draw attention, if I've understood this correctly, that the delayed financial statements for 30 June 23 were due for a number of reasons. The assets were revalued as of the final day of the financial year, meaning that whilst the higher asset values appear in the balance sheet, none of the higher depreciation expenses are included in the income statement. That means we do have a clean audit report on our accounts, and it is leading edge work that has gone into these asset valuations, but I'm just really nervous about what our financial statements look good, but the reality probably was going to be a lot worse if we actually had the valuations earlier, but I know it was a big body of work. So if I'm understanding that incorrectly, please let me know, but potentially it could have been a lot worse, and that's why our financial results for 23 are what they are.
Through the chair, that is correct. The depreciation hit is not in the financial statements that we're asking you to endorse or adopt tonight. It is correct that they were delayed from the usual presenting them in November through to now. That was a chance for the external auditor to say that let's get our valuations in order before they come and have a look at it. That did take a number of months. We've now presented that. We have that clean bill of health, as you alluded to, not only for the accounts but also for the controls. So we've got 2 clean bills of health for those. That is good news, but and you're right, the depreciation will come through now, not in the financial statements.
Just have one more question, Your Worship. What gets reflected in our annual report for 2023? Because that's usually a November document as well. So these financial statements will go in our annual report. Is that correct? Without any sort of commentary, and that will come later?
Through the Chair, we adopted the annual report before. It just needed the financial statements attached to it. But Trish wants to have another crack at the microphone before she retires, so we'll hand over.
Through the Chair, the annual report is complete and adopted with the exception of the inclusion of the financial statements. So all the compliance and regulatory reporting is included in it. There's a resolution referred to under recommendation 2 that requests the council to follow through on that prior resolution from November to include the financial statements and finalise the annual report.
Any further discussion? So I'll put the recommendations. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. So we go now to 9.7 is a report from the Section 41 Audit and Risk Committee, the Audit Completion Report for 2022-23, and there is 2 recommendations. Is there a mover for that? Anybody? Councillor Livingston? Yeah. Seconder, Councillor Miller? Is any discussion you wish to speak? Yeah.
Sorry, Worship, just a comment. The auditors...
Livingston moved.
The auditor has allocated a high risk rating for the next phases of the asset revaluation process due to the likely materiality of the results. A number of medium and low risk suggestions were also made by the auditor for improvement, and management will provide their plans regarding these at the April Audit and Risk Committee meeting. Just when will we see our long-term financial plan? Are we now better positioned to start looking at that?
Through the Chair. Once Council tonight have endorsed the financial statements and the Quarter Budget Review report, those will be updated into the current long-term financial plan and provided to the Audit and Risk Committee in April, and that will then come to Council. Separately, there's a body of work to kind of recast, if you like, the long-term financial plans as required by November, and that will be much more of a comprehensive review with the new asset management data.
Any further discussion? If not, I'll put the recommendations. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. 9.8 is report from the Section 41 Audit and Risk Committee financial results for 2020, 22 and 23. There's 2 recommendations there. Move Councillor Maidment. Seconder, Councillor Oliver. Sorry. Any discussion relating to that? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Report 9.9 is a report from the Section 41 Audit and Risk Committee, the second quarter budget review for 2023-24, and there's 2 recommendations there. Councillor, will you move that?
I'm happy to move recommendation 1.
Okay, so recommendation 1. Is there a seconder for recommendation? Is a seconder for recommendation 1? Councillor Livingston. Is there any discussion? Councillor Oliver.
Just a couple of questions. Does the projected $5 million deficit need or ought to be recovered from ratepayers? So, for example, will there be an extra rates notice this year? Secondly, in regard to the Wharf project, could you please let us know what the transfer of the $710,000 is for? Has it been spent? And what was the existing $1 million contingency spent on? Thank you.
Through the chair, you can't raise more rates in the current financial year. We're not proposing that the deficit which is coming before us is immediately recovered from ratepayers. What we need to do is plan exactly how we're going to get that deficit back down, and that can be over a number of years. We need to bring that towards you. The second part of the question is in regards to the Wharf. It was initially adopted with a $1 million contingency. That was spent on a combination of things, which included project management costs before council took it over, so there was additional invoices for that. There was some work which was done on the signal point. There was also it was identified that the electricity was in the wrong place. Actually, I might actually ask Lee to come forward and help me out on this one. I didn't realise he was still back there. So, yeah. And then I may follow up after Lee has spoken.
Through the Chair, so there's been a myriad of complexities with the project so far. As Nigel mentioned, we've had the electrical services under the shed, which some of you may have seen as we did the walk around. There's an abundance of things on Signal Point itself required to be addressed. There was steelwork members that were in a much poorer condition than we could see until we took the roof sheets off. There was electrical services and data services, alarm services throughout the building need to be addressed. Of course, Signal Point is part of the Wharf project, just that bit's finished. A lot of those costs went into that. There's been, only in the last few days, the piers needed to be, had divers to get them removed and addressed because they simply couldn't be taken out, so we've had divers there this week. So the statement that the $1 million has been exhausted is principally a forecast that it will be exhausted. It is not all gone as yet, but it is highly likely that that will be the case. So the transition of the 710 is not to anticipate fully exhausting that, it is merely to put that contingency toward that project in that fashion. The anticipation being that we won't spend all the 710, and these are not things that we are making it to make it any better or prettier. They are simply to accommodate the things that we cannot foresee until we start taking the Wharf to pieces, until the shed to pieces. Does that answer your question?
Any further discussion? We're only talking about recommendation 1 at the moment. So I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Now we go to recommendation 2. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Scott. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Nicholson. Do we have any discussion? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Worship. This February report, March, generally gives us 6 months of actuals and predicts our end of year result, which it's done. So that means we can now start looking at how we do some correction, as I understand it, and we either do that by retiming things or we borrow, and we are suggesting borrowing to do this. Is that correct? Is that how I'm reading this? Or are we just going to live with a deficit that we have and just accept that at the end of the year we're likely going to... I'm just trying to understand what this means, that we're 6 months in and now we're looking ahead the next 6 months. Are we going to revise anything, or and what happens if things start going wrong in other capital projects? How we manage that?
Through the Chair, this isn't proposing that we stop any projects which are currently in play. What we adopted at the start of the year, we are continuing on. We will have a look at projects which haven't commenced, but the majority have already commenced and need to be done. We will provide Council with better information of exactly what we're proposing to carry forward into future years. We do realise that we do have to look at our capital program going forward, and that's exactly what we're going to be doing through the budget process. There is a paragraph in there which talks about making sure that we've got ability to borrow for an extra $5 million. That isn't because we've spent more money. It's just the matter of we have a line of credit from the LGFA, and it's making sure that we have the ability to get that money out. Trish, have I clarified that $5 million?
Yes, cash flow projections.
Cash flow.
Yeah, predict that. We possibly should have asked for a little bit extra in loan funding at the beginning of the budget cycle, but the additional capital expenditure through the year has just made it prudent for us to get an additional line of credit. And it's untied, if you like, in terms of cash flow to the outcome of the operating bottom line.
But what the budget is not proposing to do is to spend more on the capital program than we adopted at the start of the year. Following up on Lee's comment about the 710,000 being transferred to the Wharf, we did have a contingency adopted, which was for the overall capital program, and what we're suggesting is that 710 go to the Wharf. Lee has confirmed that there is not an expectation that we will spend all that money. As we get closer to the 30th of June deadline, we'll keep you informed of the capital program, and if further adjustments need to be made, we'll bring them to the attention. I've heard from Council before that if I need to do budget adjustments, I shouldn't do that in the CEO report, and I'll make sure that we have separate reports as we lead into the end of June on those.
Councillor Nicholson.
Question. Your Worship, when will the Goolwa Wharf revitalisation project be finished?
Through the Chair, I'm going to say October, but I'm going to put the project manager on the spot to make sure he repeats me.
You'll be correct, CEO, yeah, October. It's forecast for September completion. Excuse me. Yeah, it's forecast at the end of September currently, with early October with defects resolution, so October, in anticipation for the November celebrations.
I do wish to add to that, there's certain components that need to be done by the end of the financial year to make sure we get our hands on the state and federal funding, and we're on track to do that, which is going to improve our cash flow as well. I think that the project is going extremely well. I keep getting these $1 million invoices from McMahon's over my desk as they're meeting their milestone payments. They're hitting them month after month after month, and that's why I feel more confident about saying October these days.
Any further discussion? So I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. (9.10) is a report from the Section 41 Audit Risk Committee. Economic assumptions from the annual budget process of 2024-25, and there's two recommendations there. Do we have a mover for that? Councillor Miller, you moving it? Yeah. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Maidment. Any discussion? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Worship. We have to fully embrace these economic assumptions and the reality of them. I feel terrible that I keep drawing attention to this, but now I'm looking for some help with communication. I think this is going to be our strategy moving forward. There are two difficult issues: the depreciation and the drag on our sustainability by not increasing rates the full CPI in 2021. In this current year, and the cumulative effect of these 2 years have put us 5.8% behind the the long-term financial plan over the last 4 years, meaning that our rates are only able to fund 94.2% of what they purchase. And I lifted that from the report from the Audit and Risk Committee. So we've dropped our rates, but we didn't drop our spending. So our long-term financial plan is going to be very critical that we all understand that. And it is going to be very tricky conversations to have with our community. And yes, I think these economic assumptions are just critical because they inform how we manage our draft budget and what we put out to the community, which is just, yes, thank you.
Any further discussion? Councillor Oliver.
I'd just like to raise some concern with a couple of the assumptions. For example, the growth one, we're talking about growth of 1.2% per annum. I'm having trouble reconciling that to the greater growth project where we're saying the population will double over X period of time. The numbers don't reflect back. I'm thinking it should be closer to 3 to 4% for the annual growth. If you were to align with the plans for increase in the population. I also have a continuing problem with the 1.5% sustainability factor. And I don't agree with the commentary in item 5.
Through the Chair, the growth factor is based upon the valuations that come through from the Valuer General Department. They're usually, we get them throughout the year. It's historically been tracking to that, but we do also present them to Council as the Valuer General gets to us. So we will present factually what the growth figure is as we get the data from the VG Department. I'm not sure that last point about you don't believe 0.5, where we're looking.
Sorry, the wording of item 5, the narrative. This is important in realising the full potential of our community as we collectively work together to achieve our vision for the community. I think that's subjective.
Any further discussion? Councillor Miller, you'll close the discussion. Right.
Thank you, Worship. I think when it comes to growth, if I understand how this gets factored in, that we're better off underestimating what our growth will be rather than overestimating it, because we make decisions based on how much our community grows. Like, yes, we get revenue, but we also, with new residents comes costs in servicing those residents, waste management, what have you. So I think we're better if we say we'll get 1.3%. We know it's probably higher than that. I know it is in Strath. It's much higher than that. But that then builds us in some little buffer to then, if I understand how this works, for those known unknowns or the unknown unknowns.
Through the Chair, the major concern is how we affect our existing ratepayers. So if we, and this is what the recommendations from the Audit Committee is based upon, this is correct, that if we get more growth, then more money comes in. But the growth figure is not going to affect how we change our existing ratepayers if you're going to be setting the rate in the dollar based upon how it's going to affect our existing ratepayers. So yes, it's better to underestimate, but usually we're fairly close to the mark anyway on where we finish up.
Close the debate. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried. 9.11 we've done. 9.12 we've done. 9.13 is the minutes of the Section 41 Southern Communities Transport Scheme Advisory Committee, and with the recommendation that we receive and note the minutes from their 21st of February 2024 meeting. Move Councillor Gardner. Seconder, Councillor Nicholson. Any discussion? Put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. 9.14 is the minutes of the Lot 10 Langhorne Creek Road Steering Project Group. There's a recommendation that we receive those minutes from the meeting held on the 20th of February 2024 Is the move Councillor Livingston? Seconder, Councillor Miller. Is there any discussion? No, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. 9.15 is a report from the Lot 10 Langhorne Creek Road Project Steering Committee. Revised master plan of Lot 10 Langhorne Creek Road, Langhorne Creek, and there's 2 recommendations. Is there a mover for them? Councillor Scott. Is there a seconder? Councillor Miller. Is any discussion relating to the recommendations of the minutes report? Councillor Nicholson, yeah.
Thank you. I just wanted to confirm that this is this included in that business case budget?
Thanks. Through the chair. No, there's an additional $50,000 that's being requested via this motion. The original budget of $100,000 is largely expended. Well, it's not yet, but it will be by the time we get the original scope of the business case. But what the consultants have advised is that they can complete within scope and budget, which is precisely what we've asked them to do, but they would be doing so with what they see as a compromised master plan that's not very adaptable. It doesn't account for the ability to be able to stage development so that users can come in and apply for funding as required. And also that it would be based on costings that are now out of date and again fundamentally look to be a little bit light on. So it's really important to have a business case that's supported by an adaptable master plan and then costings that are realistic. So when the users go for grant funding, they'll be able to have a useful document.
Any further discussion? Councillor Maidment.
So this will be the 3rd master plan for that site, is that right?
At least the 3rd. I think that there were 2 that were created through the steering group, one that included a harness racing track and then another that didn't. And then of course the Strathalbyn Harness Racing Club had their own done. I don't think it's about wholesale changes as well. It's more about looking at efficiencies in where the car parking is located, ensuring that it can be done in different stages. So it's making improvements, I think, to the master plans that are already provided.
Any further? Councillor Livingston.
Do we have a running total of what this project has cost council?
Through the chair, so far we've paid out invoices of just under $15,000, but our experience with this particular consultant is they ask for an upfront payment. They did the productive economy paper for us and then they don't charge us until the work's complete.
Sorry, to clarify, I mean total budget resources, what's been put towards Lot 10 so far?
Through the chair, I think we'd need to take that on notice because the majority of the additional cost would be staff time.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Worship. I completely understand the reservations here. At the Lot 10 Project Steering Group meeting, when the TSA person represented came and spoke to everyone, that there was no business case at this point was very disappointing. I'm very hesitant about allocating any more money to this until I sought clarification on what's going on here. So we have 2 business cases that we have to do because we have the Harness Racing Club shadow still over us. If this doesn't get supported, what we won't have, we just need the community to have a scoped document that allows for staged development. We don't have any budget to do any work at Lot 10. I think that's generally accepted by the community and the users. What they want is a document that will let them go and chase it and do all the hard work and the heavy lifting. And we have not been able to give that to them because we have this terrible situation where we have this huge demand. All the user groups have been asked since 2019 to provide what they would like to see happen on Lot 10. And then we constantly have this harness racing club impost, if you like. So I think, you know, and the harness racing track was right in the middle of Lot 10. It made it impossible to use that land, do a staged approach. It was all or nothing. We've got a basketball club that's ready to go. We've got, you know, we could have an RV park out there. We've got the show society. But because we can't give them all a document that says you could do stage one yourselves if they just had access to the land, we are spinning our wheels, it feels like, here. And I'm as disappointed as everyone. So I don't know. I don't understand where the harness racing club's at. I don't understand what their involvement is. We have no communication, no oversight, no feedback. They are operating completely separate on this piece of land that everybody has an interest in. I really don't know what the answer is here. If we don't get the extra money, well, we just deal with what we've got. And with the budget that we have and the costs that we're facing, I'm really uncomfortable asking for an extra $50,000. I don't see why we couldn't deliver it with $100,000. But I don't really know what the answer is, so I'm going to leave it to the chamber to decide, because it's all very, very disheartening. This huge demand. We don't have a sport and recreation strategy. We don't have public recreation facilities in Strathalbyn. We have between 120 and 145 allotments going in Strathalbyn every year. We don't have a town plan that's current. It was done in 2014. So, you know, we talk about Goolwa growth and what's going on here. That hasn't happened yet, but it's happening in Strathalbyn. It's been happening for years, and it continues on, and it's somehow or other we have to start responding to our community in these public recreation facilities, and if we're not going to do it for them, then we need to get out of the way, give them the land, or do something with the land and let them work it out, because they'll drive it. All we'll have to do is put services out there and they'll drive the rest of it. So I'm handing this over to the chamber. Thank you.
Is there any further, Councillor Scott? You'll close the debate if you... anybody else want to speak? Councillor Kerwin?
You say I would close the debate.
So you can't speak. Councillor Kerwin is going to speak.
Could we get some sort of update in terms of what the Harness Racing Club are actually doing? Because one of the things they keep raising is that they want to buy some of the land and they want to develop it. They want to foster all of the other clubs, but they actually drive it. They've got the money to spend, but we don't seem to hear very much about what they're doing or what they'd like to do and a response back to them.
Through the chair, I've been in discussions with the Strathalbyn Harness Racing Club separately to that of the Lot 10 steering group. They are, despite having significant funds to contribute themselves, they also would be looking for some additional grant funding, so they're also waiting on the business case to be prepared. We'll be meeting with them again once we do have that final draft of the business case, and I would expect out of that there would be probably another offer forthcoming for council to consider.
Just follow on from that.
Have you finished it?
I was just going to say, just to follow on from that, I understand that they are rather keen for some action, but if nothing's forthcoming, they do have other options that they might want to explore. So there is some sort of timeline on this that we need to consider.
Councillor Maidment?
Yeah, I'm glad Councillor Miller raised the Strathalbyn Town Plan 214 to 224, so it's almost finished. Part of that town plan, if you've ever read it, was for the Harness Racing Club to rezone their land to industrial from residential, to open that up for businesses coming into Strathalbyn, which is what is currently happening now. It's going gangbusters on Milnes Road, and the planning department will attest to that with a number of development applications already on that site. So that's one of the outcomes of the town plan. And the other outcome was, prior to that, 2011 was when council first asked the Harness Club if they would like to have that rezoning done and move to Lot 10. So realistically, this has been going on for 13 years now, and there was money put in the budget a few years back of 800,000 to activate the site in terms of utilities. That was in the previous chamber. That got deleted, if you like, in preference to this business case. I do know that the Harness Club will only purchase land, or they'll lease it for a very, very long time, so 50 plus years. And council holding the land, if council want to sell the land, all they have to do is just give them the nod, and they will drag in and bring along other groups with them, co-locate. They don't want all the land, they ever have wanted all the land, and there's plenty of land there for the basketball club to go out and for grant opportunities to and have plenty of space for themselves. They do need, and I feel sorry for them in a lot of respects, because they have so many people playing that sport, they've got nowhere to play it. So I wouldn't be throwing another $50,000 at this either.
Scott, you want to close the debate on it?
Yes, I am possibly a bit of a late arrival as far as Lot 10, although I did go to one of the earlier meetings, but I went to this meeting the other day, and it's concerning me greatly that and it's nothing to do with what staff, I mean, I think the staff are as perplexed as we all are and were, but as I see it, we need to peg out where these groups can go and let them get on with it. Now, the Show Society, for example, has had to hand back $125,000 of a grant that they received because there was no land set up for them to move on to. Nothing had been finalised. So they've had to hand some money. I mean, they've got practically nothing. They had that. They were going to put up a shed with it, a pavilion. Well, that's gone because of the time delay. So why don't we... Basketball seem to be, and I don't want to necessarily speak for them, only what I heard, the information I sort of gleaned, was that they're in a position where they can actually, I think, apply for some fairly lucrative grants. But, you know, why don't we just go out there, clear the ground and say, right, we'll peg it. This is shows, that's Caravan Park, this is Show Society, and do it smartly. Next door will be basketball, so that showtime, the show will use the basketball stadium, and when the basketball people want to go there for it, they'll park on the showgrounds. So you get this joint usage and being smart with it, so we're not using any more land than we have to. The Show Society can work out an oval, start planting some trees, because it's as bare as anything down there. Plant some trees and start there, because you can't do these things overnight. It all takes time. And but we're losing time. I mean, we've been talking about this for some years, and I really think we need to do something. And it appears like a lot of these things that we're absolutely locked in the local government or grants. You can't do anything unless you've got a business plan. Or you can't do this unless there's a master plan. You can't. No one will listen to you. So I'm afraid if we want to progress it, we're going to have to do what Matt is suggesting. And so that at least there's a document there that when the groups go and try and get some grants funding, that they've got the document that the grantors will accept. And I think I stand corrected if I think I've got it pretty much right, haven't I? So I just think we've just got to progress it. The trotting club is just another, as I said, another obstacle along the way, because there's appears to be quite a lot of resistance to them going in there. I'm not sure why they wanted to go in there anyway, but that's for them, not for me to decide or have an opinion. But I think we've got to get on and get those groups so they've got a future. And that's what I'm urging us to do, and much as we're stuck, I think we're going to have to do that. So I urge you to support it in the interest of making it happen. Thank you.
That ends the discussion. I'll put the recommendations to you. All those in favour? Against? Against? It's carried. We go to 9.16. The minutes of the special Alexandrina Sustainable Roundtable ASART meeting of the 13th of February 2024. The recommendation that we receive and note those minutes. Councillor Gardner. Seconder, Councillor Oliver. Any discussion relating to the minutes? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. 9.17 is a report from the special Alexandrina Sustainable Roundtable ASART, and recommendations. And a recommendation is moved. Councillor Scott.
I'll move that, and if I may just say that it is that special meeting is the very thing that the ASART people said that they want to be engaged in. If council has some query about it, go back. They're an advisory group. Go back and consult with them, whatever it is. Not necessarily this article, but that's what they are keen to be there to support council in providing information.
So, do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Gardner. Do we have any further discussion? Councillor Coomans.
Look, I did raise today that the minutes, it shows that my resolution that I made in December, and there was a vital number of words missing from that. And I did advise the CEO, who's corrected the public minutes, but let me quote what's not contained in this report that should have been there, and that's in relation to the, I might as well read it all. The history of the primary producers reduced differential, including a comparison of increased against residential rating over the past 5 years, and the important words are noting that the current 17% rebate for primary producers getting a primary income from farming remains. And that seems to be missed, because most of the discussion was at that meeting was all about the 17%. And I guess I was also rather disappointed because I went along, the CEO let me know that it was on, and I went along as an observer. But there were also other people there who weren't members of the committee. They too probably should have been observers, but it was run like a town meeting. And those 3 or so members had the voice of the whole, just about the whole meeting. And I was probably fairly disappointed in the way that meeting was proceeded with, because those three that turned up were not part of the committee itself, and I questioned whether it was actually a meeting of the advisory committee or whether it was just a town meeting where anything went, because they weren't acknowledged as speakers. They just spoke, and they just spoke one after the other and then kept going around in circles. I didn't think it was a very professional meeting at all. I was not going to say anything because I was there as an observer, but then it seemed like all the questions were pointed towards me in terms of the the motion that I did in December about reviewing all of the rates, not necessarily or not at all the primary producers for those who have primary production as their primary income. It was looking at all the other things, and you might have noticed at the last information meeting that the CEO raised other areas that we could possibly have looked at. And, you know, it's just unfortunate that maybe the wording of the motion or something like that, it wasn't clear enough, but the whole intention of that was to look at all of our ratings. We have a differential at the moment with 2, but we've also got primary production, we've got commercial, we've got industrial, we've got vacant land, we've got people who are sitting in retirement homes paying an individual rate, others paying part of a collective rate. So all of those sorts of things I thought we should have looked at, but obviously it didn't happen. And the only way it'll happen is if there's a rescission motion.
Is there any further discussion? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. So 9.18 is a confidential item.
South Coast Television, your community, your voice.